At the bottom of the world, Antarctica waits, in pale light, in frozen breath, in a silence so wide, it seems older than sound itself. Here, the sky does not feel high above, it feels far away, softened by snow, softened by mist, softened by the long white stillness. Everything here seems to drift, even when nothing moves, even when the ice stands still, even when the horizon refuses to end. This is not a place that welcomes noise. It is a place that lowers every voice, a place that slows every thought, a place that lets the world grow quiet. One layer at a time, above the sea, the continent seems almost untouched, a sleeping kingdom of ice, a white edge of earth, a final cold sanctuary. But along its frozen borders, where ancient shelves of ice stretch out over black water, another world begins, a darker world, a deeper world, a world that does not shine, a world that does not hurry, a world that waits below the brightness. And tonight, we begin to enter it, not all at once, not with violence, not with fear, but slowly, softly, as if the ocean itself were inviting us downward, because beneath Antarctica's darkest waters, something waits, not in the simple way of old sea legends, not as some sudden creature rising from below, but as a presence, a hidden life, a buried mystery, a sleeping world shaped by cold, by pressure, by darkness, by time. At the surface, the Southern Ocean seems almost motionless. Thin light rests on the water. Ice drifts in silence, its broken edges glowing pale blue, its frozen body turning without sound. The sea reflects the sky, and the sky reflects the ice, until everything appears suspended, everything appears hushed, everything appears held in one long breath. Then, we slip below. At first, the water is only cold, sharp cold, clear cold, the kind that touches everything at once. The last light from above still follows us, faint silver, faint grey, faint ribbons of brightness trembling through the water. Above us, the underside of the ice begins to appear, a frozen ceiling, a white and blue roof, marked by ridges, by long trapped bubbles, by cracks that seem to hold the memory of countless winters. It is beautiful, but beauty here feels distant, untouchable, ancient. The ice does not simply float, it lingers. It hangs over the sea with the patience of centuries. It creaks in slow, hidden tones. It shifts so gently that the movement is almost imagined. Some of this ice began as snow in years no one remembers. Some of it gathered, layer by layer, storm by storm, silence by silence, until it became this vast white ceiling above the sea, and below it, the descent continues. The cold changes as we go. Near the surface, it bites. It wakes the skin. It reminds the body where it is. But deeper down, it softens into something heavier, something fuller, something that no longer feels like simple temperature, but like a presence, a stillness wrapping itself around us, a weight without force, a silence without end. The light begins to thin, grey becomes blue, blue becomes shadow, shadow becomes depth, and depth becomes something difficult to measure, as if the ocean were no longer opening downward, but inward, folding gently into itself, layer after layer, silence after silence, dream after dream, and even here, life is waiting. A pale, drifting body moves past us, almost invisible, a thread of glass, a whisper with shape, then a comb jelly, faintly glowing. Brief lines of cold light running across its body, not enough to brighten the darkness, only enough to prove that something lives here, around us. Marine snow begins to fall, tiny particles, soft remains from the world above, fragments of life descending through the water, always falling, always settling, always feeding the hidden depths below. Nothing rushes here, nothing wastes itself, everything drifts, everything endures, everything learns the slow language of the deep. Beneath Antarctica, the sea keeps many rooms, submerged walls of ice, dark channels, hidden slopes, long quiet cavities where no sunlight enters, places where black currents move through narrow passageways, places where the frozen continent touches the ocean in secret, places where the world above grows very far away. And as we descend, Antarctica begins to change. It is no longer only white, no longer only bright, no longer only the shining wilderness seen from above. Down here, it becomes blue, black, silver, a buried Antarctica, a drowned Antarctica. A second face turned away from the sun. For a very long time, people looked toward this part of the world and imagined emptiness, a blank frontier, a frozen edge, a silent end. But the ocean beneath it was never empty. It was only hidden, protected by the cold, protected by the dark, protected by distance, and perhaps that is its secret. Not that it is lifeless, but that it conceals life so well. Not that it is barren, but that it buries wonder beneath silence. Not that it is asleep, but that it teaches everything entering it how to sleep more deeply, how to drift more slowly, how to let go of the bright world above. We are only at the beginning. Above us, the ice stretches on in fading light. Below us, the darkness opens wider, and the deeper we go, the more Antarctica seems to fold around us. One more silence, one more shadow, one more layer of sleep. Now, the surface is already far away, its pale light, its cold air, its drifting ice, all of it feels softer now, more distant, as if it belongs to another world above us. The frozen ceiling still lingers, but even that is beginning to fade. Its white glow growing dimmer, its blue cracks dissolving into shadow, its long ancient body becoming only a memory overhead and below. The sea continues to open, not quickly, not suddenly, but with that same slow invitation, that same gentle pull, that same quiet promise to go deeper, to let the world above loosen its hold, to leave brightness behind, one more layer at a time. Here, the water grows heavier, not violent, not rough, just full, so full of cold, so full of silence, that it begins to feel like a second sky, a dark sky beneath the first one, a sky without stars, a sky without morning, a sky that has forgotten the sun. And yet, it is not empty. It only appears empty because this part of the ocean does not reveal itself quickly. It keeps its life soft. It keeps its shapes faint. It keeps its motion slow enough to be mistaken for stillness. A drifting form passes in the distance, so pale it almost disappears. Its body transparent, its edges blurred by the dark. It does not swim with urgency. It simply moves, as if carried by thought, as if the water itself had imagined a creature and then let it continue on. Farther down, another glow appears, faint, cold, barely there. A tiny living light suspended in the black, then gone again, as if the deep had opened one eye, only to close it once more. This is the strange mercy of Antarctica's waters. They do not overwhelm all at once. They soften everything first. Light softens. Sound softens. Distance softens. Even fear begins to soften here, losing its sharp edges, becoming something quieter, something closer to awe. Because once the darkness deepens enough, the mind stops resisting it and begins instead to drift with it. Around us, marine snow continues to fall, always falling, always descending. A slow, white weather inside the sea, tiny fragments from the upper world, small remains of lives once touched by sunlight, now sinking into a colder kingdom below. Each particle turns gently, each fleck settles slowly, as if nothing in this place is allowed to arrive too soon, as if the deep insists on patience, even in decay, even in silence, even in sleep. The water presses closer, and the descent continues. Below the great Antarctic ice shelves, the ocean is filled with hidden architecture, not built by hands, not carved by intention, but shaped over ages, by freezing, by melting, by pressure, by time. There are submerged walls, smooth and pale, rising out of the dark like frozen cliffs. There are overhangs of ice, ancient and blue, hanging above black water like the roofs of buried halls. There are long, sloping valleys and narrow passages where currents move unseen, places no human eye can easily remain, places where the ocean touches the underside of the continent in secret, and in those hidden spaces, the world feels older, as if it has been left undisturbed for so long. That time itself has grown quiet there. It is easy to imagine forgotten things in such a place. Not monsters, not the loud creations of fear, but older forms of waiting, older forms of life, ancient stillnesses, resting beneath ice and darkness, preserved by cold, protected by distance, held in silence for centuries. Perhaps that is why Antarctica feels so different from every other ocean. Its mystery is not restless. Its mystery does not chase. It does not leap from the dark, demanding to be seen. It remains where it is, patient, buried, almost dreamlike. And because of that, the imagination leans toward it, wondering what else lies below, what else moves slowly through these black corridors, what else survives here with almost no light, what else sleeps beneath all this frozen weight. The deeper we go, the less the sea feels like open water, and the more it feels like an inward place, a folded place, a hidden chamber of the planet, where everything bright has been stripped away, leaving only shape, only motion, only breath like currents, only the long, calm rhythm of the deep. There is no hurry here, no wasted movement, and no loud struggle. Life in those waters has learned another way: to drift, to wait, to endure, to glow only when needed, to disappear when the darkness asks for it, to become part of the stillness without ever being lost inside it, and slowly, without warning, a new feeling begins to rise. Not fear, not exactly, but the sense that we are crossing a boundary, moving beyond the familiar edge of the sea, and into something more hidden, something less known, something the world above has barely touched. The light has nearly vanished now, above us. Only the faintest suggestion of silver remains. Below us, blackness opens like an endless, flawless room, and somewhere inside that room, the hidden life of Antarctica continues, drifting, waiting, breathing in silence, keeping its distance, keeping its secrets, letting us come only this far, for now, because the deepest parts of this ocean do not reveal themselves at once. They reveal themselves the way sleep does, gradually, softly, one fading light, one deeper shadow, one more inward step, deeper now, so much deeper, that the world above feels imagined, a pale memory, a distant brightness, something that belonged to another kind of life, another kind of water, another kind of dream, here. The sea has become almost entirely dark, not empty dark, not lifeless dark, but a dark with texture, a dark with movement, a dark that seems to breathe around us. The last silver traces from above are gone, the ice ceiling has dissolved into shadow, and all that remains is the slow black body of the ocean, opening, folding, welcoming us farther inward. This is where Antarctica begins to feel secretive in a new way, not because it hides suddenly, but because it hides completely. There are no bright edges here, no clear horizon, no simple sense of up or down, only drifting particles, only cold pressure, only faint shapes that appear and fade, as if the sea is thinking quietly to itself, and we are passing through that thought. The cold continues to deepen, not sharper, not harsher, only more complete. It no longer touches the skin as something separate. It becomes the world itself, a full, surrounding stillness, a temperature so old, so settled. It feels less like weather and more like a condition of existence, as if this place was never meant to be warm, never meant to be loud, never meant to be anything but slow. Around us, marine snow still falls, patiently, endlessly, each tiny fragment descending through the water like a soft, white whisper. Bits of the upper ocean, bits of forgotten motion, bits of life returning to the deep. Nothing here arrives all at once. Everything takes its time, even endings, even hunger, even the long journey downward. And then, out in the dark, a light appears, small, blue-white, barely visible, not the warm light of land, not the golden light of a window, but a colder living light, a pulse in the black, a single quiet signal. It lingers for only a moment, then another appears, farther away, then another. Faint sparks scattered through the darkness, like a sky learning how to dream underwater. Bioluminescence, the language of hidden creatures, the soft speech of bodies that shine only when needed. No sunlight reaches here, and so life has made another kind of light, gentler, stranger, more secret. A tiny animal drifts past, almost transparent, its body carrying a dim internal glow. It does not move like a hunter. It does not move like prey. It simply exists, suspended in the water, as if the darkness itself had decided to bloom for a moment. Then farther on, a longer shape, thin and pale, its edges blurred by the sea. It glides without hurry, without sound, leaving behind no trace but a feeling. The feeling that something has passed nearby, something alive, something perfectly adapted to this buried world. In shallower seas, life often announces itself, with color, with motion, with noise, but not here. Here, life survives by restraint, by softness, by near invisibility, by becoming so delicate, so careful, that the ocean almost cannot tell where body ends and darkness begins. This is one of Antarctica's deepest secrets. Not a single creature, not a single hidden beast, but an entire way of being, a way shaped by absence, by months of darkness, by crushing cold, by the endless roof of ice far above. Everything here has learned to live quietly, to take little, to waste nothing, to drift where drifting is wiser than struggle, to glow only in brief, soft answers to the black. And as we move farther down, the sea around us begins to feel larger than imagination, not wider, but deeper in meaning, as if every layer we pass through removes another piece of the ordinary world. Surface. Gone. Daylight. Gone. Noise. Gone. Urgency. Gone. What remains is simpler and stranger, a realm of pressure and patience, of soft lights, of unseen bodies, of currents that move like slow breathing in a sleeping chest, somewhere nearby. The contours of the seafloor begin to suggest themselves, not clearly, not all at once, just a hint. A dark slope below the dark water, a deeper darkness beneath the darkness itself, the beginning of shape, the promise of hidden terrain. And with it comes that quiet, ancient feeling again, that we are approaching a place left undisturbed for ages, a place where the ocean keeps its oldest habits, a place where the planet seems to withdraw inward and rest. It is easy here, very easy, to imagine that entire worlds have gone unseen beneath Antarctica, worlds of slow creatures, of cold valleys, of buried channels and black ridges, of life continuing without witness, without praise, without ever being fully known. Perhaps that is why the deep feels so calming, because nothing here asks to be admired, nothing performs, nothing rushes forward, and it simply lives, softly, patiently, in the long shadow of the ice. And now, as we descend a little farther, the darkness below begins to feel less open and more shaped, as if chambers are waiting there, as if the seafloor is rising slowly to meet us, as if another hidden layer is about to begin. Above us, there is no longer any sign of the upper world. Around us, the water glows and fades in tiny living whispers. Below us, something older is forming in the dark, a landscape, a silence, a deeper resting place. And we continue downward, with one more soft pulse of light, one more falling veil of marine snow, one more layer of hidden life. Below us now, the seafloor begins to gather itself, not suddenly, not with sharp edges, but slowly, as if the darkness is remembering how to take shape. A slope appears first, faint, heavy, a deeper black beneath the black water, then ridges, then long uneven hollows, then the suggestion of a valley, buried in cold, buried in silence, buried so deeply beneath the ice above that it feels untouched by every ordinary rhythm of Earth. Here, the ocean no longer feels endless in all directions. It feels guided, drawn inward by contours, by hidden walls, by the slow architecture of the deep sea floor. The water still drifts around us, still cold, still full, still calm enough to quiet every thought. But now, there is something else, a sense of place, a sense of entering a chamber, a sense that the sea has been slowly leading us here, toward this darker floor, toward this older world, toward this part of Antarctica that almost no surface imagination ever reaches. Marine snow continues to fall, softly, patiently, settling over ridges, settling over stone, settling over whatever waits without movement. Below, each tiny fragment touches the sea floor like a whisper, a slow gift from the upper world, a fading memory of light, descending for months, for seasons, for longer than any hurried life can understand, And on this dark ground, life waits differently, no longer only drifting, no longer only suspended in the black water. Here, things rest, things cling, things crawl so gently that movement itself almost disappears. A pale shape lies against the seafloor. At first it seems like stone or ice-burnished sediment or some forgotten contour of the deep. Then slowly, it shifts, not with alarm, not with force, only enough to reveal that it is alive, a creature built for stillness, a creature whose survival depends on becoming almost part of the place itself. Farther on, something delicate rises from the bottom, thin arms, soft branches, a body that resembles a frozen plant more than an animal, yet it too is living, gathering what drifts past, taking from the slow water only what it needs. Nothing more, nothing wasted. That is the law here, not conquest, not speed, but patience, endurance, silence. The creatures of Antarctica's hidden depths do not battle the darkness. They join it. They become pale where the sea floor is pale, soft where the current is soft, still where stillness offers safety. This is a world where survival means listening, listening to pressure, listening to cold, listening to the long, quiet movement of water through buried valleys. And in that listening, life has shaped itself into forms that seem almost dreamlike. Ghost-pale bodies, feathered limbs, transparent edges, living designs so strange, so careful, that they seem imagined by the ocean itself. We drift farther along the slope, and the valley opens wider, its floor uneven, its edges broken by ridges and scattered outcrops. Dark sediment lies like velvet over the ground, soft in appearance, ancient in feeling, as if layer upon layer has settled here without interruption. Year after year, century after century, a record written not in words, but in falling matter, in cold preservation, in the slow memory of the sea. There is something deeply peaceful in this hidden floor beneath Antarctica, this world that does not seek attention, that does not rise toward the surface, that does not ask to be found. It simply remains, doing what it has always done, breathing through stillness, feeding through patience, enduring through the long sleep of the polar deep. And perhaps this is why the descent feels gentler here. Not brighter, not safer in any ordinary way, but more settled, as if we have passed through the open darkness and arrived in a place of quiet habitation, a place where the ocean keeps its lower gardens, its buried fields of pale life, its silent communities shaped by cold and time. Yet even here, mystery remains, because the valley does not reveal all of itself. Its darker corners remain untouched by the faint glows around us. Its deeper folds remain hidden beyond sight, and every ridge seems to promise another shadow behind it, another chamber, another secret held just out of view. What lies farther ahead, in the deeper trenches, in the narrower passages, in the oldest cuts beneath the Antarctic Sea, is not yet clear, but the feeling of hiddenness grows stronger here, not dramatic, not threatening, only deep, only ancient, only patient, as if the continent above, with all its white silence, has pressed that silence downward into the ocean and stored it here, in valleys, in stone, in living bodies that barely move, in waters so cold they seem to preserve not only life, but time itself. Above us, nothing remains of the upper world. Around us, The seafloor stretches in dim suggestion. Ahead, the valley bends into thicker darkness, and we continue, past one resting creature, one pale branch of life, one more untouched layer of the deep. Farther in, the valley narrows, its quiet floor drawing us onward, its ridges rising higher on either side, until the open sea behind us begins to feel far away, as if we have crossed into a more hidden part of the deep, a place less touched by drifting openness, a place more enclosed, more sheltered, more secret. The water here moves differently, not absent of motion, but slower in its expression, as if every current has been taught restraint, as if the cold itself has asked the sea to move with care. Nothing rushes through these buried corridors, nothing disturbs the silence for long. Even marine snow seems to fall more softly here, turning through the dark like pale dust in an ancient sleeping room below. The seafloor changes under that constant descent. The sediment thins in places, and black stone begins to emerge. Broken ledges, low outcrops, long dark ribs of earth rising through the soft layers above them. Some surfaces gleam faintly where the current has kept them bare. Others lie under a fine resting coat of pale drift, each one holding stillness in its own way, each one carrying the quiet age of a world rarely seen. We move beside one low wall of rock, and there, attached to its cold face, life appears again, not brightly, not boldly, but delicately. A cluster of pale forms clings to the stone, soft-bodied, almost translucent, like petals made from moonlit frost, each one open to the water, each one waiting for the sea to bring what little nourishment it can. They do not hunt, they do not chase, they receive, and in receiving, they survive. This too is part of Antarctica's hidden wisdom, to endure not by force, but by stillness, to live not by excess, but by patience. A little farther on, a longer shape rests half buried in the sediment, its body so quiet, so perfectly blended into the floor that it almost escapes the eye entirely. Only a subtle curve reveals it, only the gentlest difference in texture, only the faint suggestion that the seafloor itself is breathing. It does not move as we pass, or perhaps it does, but so slowly, so slightly. That movement loses its meaning and becomes something closer to time, something closer to sleep around us. The dark feels thicker now, not because the space is smaller, but because the valley is turning inward, bending gently, guiding us deeper between its ancient walls. Each ridge hides what lies behind it. Each hollow suggests another hidden layer beyond. This is how Antarctica keeps its secrets, not with doors, not with barriers, but with distance, with contour, with shadow, with the simple fact that one silence always leads to another, and another, and another. Sometimes a faint glow rises in the water beside us, a small living pulse, then fades before it fully forms. At other times, a drifting body emerges from the black, transparent as breath on glass, then disappears again against the valley wall. Everything in this place seems to understand the value of partial revelation, to show only enough, to remain mostly hidden, to exist without needing to be fully seen. That is why the deep can feel so dreamlike here. Not because it is unreal, but because it refuses the hard edges of waking life. Nothing presents itself completely. Nothing announces its full shape. Everything arrives gently. as if the ocean were careful not to break the spell of its own silence, and beneath that silence the valley floor keeps changing. The black stone gives way to softer ground, then rises again in broken terraces, then falls into a darker trough where the drifting snow gathers more thickly. This lower channel feels older somehow, more settled, as if the water has been tracing this path for a very long time, returning, circling, whispering through the same buried route again and again, polishing the stone, feeding the pale anchored life, carrying faint nutrients through a world almost cut off from light. It is easy to imagine that these hidden passages beneath Antarctica have continued like this for ages, through storms above, through freezing winters, through passing centuries. No creature here could ever count. The surface changes, ice breaks, ice reforms, winds rise and fall, but down here, the deeper valley remains, steady in its darkness, steady in its cold, steady in the long patience with which it holds life. Perhaps that is the most mysterious thing of all. Not that something monstrous lies beneath Antarctica, but that an entire quiet civilization of cold endurance has always been here, unseen, uncelebrated, living without witness, growing from stone, clinging to ridges, drifting through narrow black corridors, sleeping when it must, feeding when it can, and asking nothing from the bright world above. We continue along the bend, past another pale cluster on the rock, past another shape resting half within the sediment, past another faint bioluminescent flicker, gone before it fully becomes a light. Ahead, the valley narrows once more, and the darkness beyond it seems heavier, older, as if the ocean is about to fold inward again. One more hidden corridor, one more deeper chamber, one more quiet truth beneath the ice. Now, the valley begins to change again, not in color, not in sound, but in feeling. The walls draw closer, the darkness grows more settled, and the water itself seems to lose even the smallest memory of the surface, as if we are no longer simply beneath Antarctica, but inside it, inside its hidden stillness, inside its long, cold thought. The ridges on either side rise in broken silence, black stone, dark sediment, pale traces of resting life clinging to whatever can hold them. Nothing here appears accidental. Everything seems shaped by repetition, by slow currents, by endless cold, by the patient work of time pressing downward through water and ice. We move through a passage now, a narrower corridor in the valley floor, its sides rough in some places, smooth in others, as though the ocean has been touching these walls for ages, wearing them down, remembering them, returning through them again and again. The marine snow still falls, but more gently here, its descent interrupted by the closeness of the stone, its pale drifting path folding between ledges and hollows. Some of it settles at once, some of it hangs in the water, turning slowly, as if uncertain where to rest. And in that slow turning, the whole passage feels dreamlike, not empty, never empty, but suspended, held in a silence so complete it almost feels sacred. Along one dark ledge, a fragile shape emerges, branches outward, thin pale arms lifted into the current, gathering what little the water offers. It does not sway much, only enough to remind us that even here, life continues its small, patient work. Farther on, another shape rests beneath an overhang, flattened against the stone, almost impossible to distinguish from the darkness around it. It is not hiding in panic. It is simply part of this place, part of the wall, part of the waiting, part of the long, quiet discipline that governs the deep. Everything here seems to know that survival belongs to what can remain still, what can remain soft, what can remain unnoticed. And so the creatures of this hidden Antarctic world do not shine brightly, do not move carelessly, do not spend more than the deep can spare. They endure. That is their gift. That is their wisdom. That is their ancient agreement with the cold. The passage bends, and for a moment, the floor drops away more sharply than before, not into an abyss, not yet, but into a deeper hollow, a darker cut in the valley, where the marine snow gathers in thicker veils, where the water feels heavier, where the sea floor seems to disappear beneath its own shadow. We descend carefully. And with that descent, the world around us softens even more. The walls become outlines. The outlines become suggestion. The suggestion becomes darkness again. Only a few faint, living glimmers appear now and then. Small, cold pulses in the black, blinking once then gone, as if the deep is breathing in its sleep. Each light so brief, so distant, that it feels less like illumination and more like memory. A memory of life, a memory of motion, a memory of the sea quietly speaking to itself. Above us, nothing remains of the bright world, no silver traces, no hint of day, only dark water over dark water, layer upon layer, silence above silence. This is where Antarctica becomes truly inward, where every familiar sense begins to loosen, where direction matters less, and feeling becomes more important than sight. We are not just following a valley now, we are following a mood, a hidden rhythm, a lower pulse of the earth, and it leads us through stone, through cold, through sleeping corridors untouched by ordinary time. Perhaps this is why the deep polar ocean feels so ancient, because it does not seem to belong to the same hurried world as everything else. It belongs to slowness, to pressure, to repetition, to the quiet persistence of forms that do not need to change quickly. What lives here has adapted not to seasons of comfort, but to long discipline, to scarcity, to darkness, to the endless folding inward of the sea. And the farther we go, the more that folding can be felt. The passage narrows once more, then opens, not into brightness, not into relief, but into a wider hollow, a chamber-like space resting in the dark, its floor soft with settled matter, its edges lined with broken stone, its ceiling lost in black water above. This place feels undisturbed, more than undisturbed. It feels preserved, as if the ocean laid it down long ago and has been guarding it ever since. Nothing dramatic waits here, no sudden movement, no violent revelation, only the deeper truth of Antarctica's waters. That mystery does not always arrive as shock. Sometimes it arrives as silence, as stillness, as a place so hidden, so patient, that simply reaching it feels like entering a dream. We drift through this dark chamber slowly, past one faint pulse of cold light, past one pale creature rooted to stone, past one more layer of the world left behind by the sun. And ahead, beyond the chamber, the seafloor falls away again, not steeply, but surely, into something darker, something lower, something that feels older than the valley itself. One more descent, One more folding inward, one more quiet step toward the deeper Antarctic abyss. Beyond the chamber, the ground begins to slope once more, so gently at first that the descent feels almost imagined. A slow yielding of the seafloor, a soft downward leaning of stone and sediment, as if the hidden world beneath Antarctica is opening another page and asking us to turn it quietly. The water around us feels even more still now, not motionless, but obedient to some deeper calm. The currents no longer seem to pass through this place. They seem to rest inside it, moving with such care, such patience, such restraint, that the entire abyss feels as though it is breathing in its sleep behind us. The chamber fades into shadow, its pale floor, its broken edges, its rooted life, all of it folding back into darkness. Ahead, only the new descent remains. A darker path, a lower corridor, a place where the ocean seems to gather itself more tightly, as if whatever lies farther on has been hidden with greater intention. Marine snow still falls here, though even that familiar drifting veil appears thinner now, the particles more scattered, the white flecks more alone in the black. Some settle over the slope, softly, touching stone like ash from a silent sky. Others remain suspended, caught in faint movements of water we cannot fully feel, turning slowly in place, as if reluctant to descend any farther, as if even this endless snowfall senses that the deeper regions of the Antarctic Sea belong to another order of silence. Along the seafloor, life becomes harder to notice, not because it disappears, but because it grows quieter still, closer to the shape of the world around it, more patient in its design, more hidden in its habits. A low, pale body rests against the downward slope, so still, so carefully placed within the dark sediment that only its contour reveals it as living, not stone, not shadow, but something between the two, a life form so practiced in stillness it has nearly become landscape. A little farther on, tiny branching forms rise from a crack in the rock, delicate, colourless, almost weightless in appearance, receiving whatever the water offers, waiting without demand. These are not creatures of hunger in the restless sense. They do not chase the world. They let the world arrive in fragments, one drifting particle, one faint current, one more small gift from above, and that is enough. Enough to continue, enough to endure, enough to remain part of this hidden order beneath the ice. The deeper we move, the more the seafloor loses its familiar shape. The slope breaks into uneven terraces, then gathers again into long, smooth reaches of black sediment, then breaks once more, as if the earth below has been folded many times, pressed, lowered, quietly remade under the weight of cold and age. Each contour holds shadow. Each shadow suggests another concealed space, another quiet depression, another route descending beyond the reach of easy sight, and with every new layer, Antarctica feels less like a place of geography and more like a state of being, a condition of deep silence, a world made not of spectacle but of restraint, not of sudden revelation but of slow concealment. This is why the imagination continues to awaken here, not with panic, not with noise, but with a quieter wonder. What older forms of life may dwell deeper still? What buried valleys remain below these descending ledges? What silent communities continue in the black, untouched by all the hurried dramas of the upper world? It is easy to think of the surface as reality, and the deep as some hidden exception. But here, beneath Antarctica, that feeling begins to reverse. The upper world starts to seem temporary, thin, fleeting. A bright interruption above a far older calm, while down here, in the cold and pressure, in the slow fall of marine snow, in the rooted pale life and the long black slopes, everything feels permanent, not unchanged forever, but governed by rhythms so slow they resemble eternity. A faint light trembles ahead, blue-white, soft as breath on glass, then another, and another farther off, not enough to brighten the descent, only enough to remind us that the dark is inhabited, that hidden bodies are still moving here, still drifting, still opening and closing delicate living forms in the cold, still answering the absence of sunlight with their own quiet language of glow. These brief lights do not disturb the abyss. They belong to it. They bloom within it. They vanish back into it, as naturally as thoughts fading in sleep. We continue lower. The slope steepens just enough to be felt, and with it, a new heaviness settles into the water. Not danger, not dread, but depth itself. A gravity of silence, a sense that we are passing beyond the valley's outer layers and nearing something more ancient, more inward, more deeply kept. The black below us thickens, not visually alone, but emotionally, as if the ocean ahead carries a memory older than the ground behind us, as if these deeper reaches have been waiting longer, guarded more completely by cold, by darkness, by the frozen continent resting far above, around us. No sign remains of the upper sea, no silver, no blue, no trace of day, only layered blackness, broken now and then by a single drifting life form, a single pale anchored shape, a single pulse of living light, and beneath all of it, the seafloor continues downward, patiently, certainly, leading us toward another unseen hollow, another buried terrace, another quiet region beneath Antarctica's darkest waters, where the silence grows older and the hidden world grows deeper still, lower now, so much lower, that the descent itself feels like a kind of dreaming, not a movement through distance, but a movement through softness, through shadow, through the slow inward folding of the world. The slope beneath us continues, dark and patient, its surface broken by long, silent ridges, then smoothed again by settled layers of cold sediment. Nothing here feels abrupt. Even change arrives gently, as if the deep Antarctic floor has forgotten how to do anything quickly. Above, there is only darkness. Below, another darkness. And between the two, this quiet path downward, guiding us deeper beneath the frozen continent, guiding us farther from every bright, familiar thing. The water grows denser in feeling, not heavier in a way that alarms, but fuller, as though each layer of depth adds one more veil of stillness, one more hush around the mind, one more soft removal from the world above. It becomes easier here to stop expecting noise, to stop waiting for suddenness, to let the sea be what it is, a resting place, a hidden chamber, a long cold thought. Marine snow continues its endless fall, though now the particles seem finer, smaller, more scattered through the black, like the last pale remains of a world we have almost forgotten. Each fleck turns slowly as it descends. Each fleck settles without sound, and when enough of them gather on the seafloor, they soften every edge. They soften stone. They soften hollows. They soften the very shape of the abyss, as if the ocean wishes even its deepest places to be touched by gentleness. There, along a broken ledge, a thin, pale creature rises into view, its body long, its movement so slow that it seems less like swimming and more like drifting with intention. No wasted motion, no clear hurry, only a careful passage through cold water, as if it knows this depth cannot be fought, only joined, only listened to. A little farther down, a cluster of delicate anchored forms extends from the rock, translucent, faint, almost flower-like in shape, yet fully alive, gathering from the current, receiving what comes, enduring what does not. These hidden lives beneath Antarctica are not built for abundance. They are built for enough darkness, enough patience, enough nourishment to continue one day more, one season more, one long unseen century more. And perhaps that is why they feel so peaceful to witness, because they do not resist the deep. They belong to it so completely that the deep itself seems to flow through them, to shape them, to hold them in its sleep. The slope changes again, breaking into shallow steps, then longer shelves of shadowed ground, then another drop, not vast, not dramatic, but quiet, in a way that feels significant, as though we are crossing from one hidden layer into another, as though the sea floor is dividing itself into thresholds, each one lower, each one darker, each one less touched by the memory of open water. It is easy here to imagine ages passing without interruption, storms raging far above the ice, seasons shifting over the continent, the sun vanishing and returning at the edge of the world, and none of it mattering much down here, because the deep keeps its own calendar, a slower one, written in falling particles, in cold currents, in the patient lives that cling to stone and drift through shadow. Everything beneath Antarctica seems to obey that slower time, the rock, the creatures, the water itself. Nothing insists, nothing hurries, nothing breaks the silence unless silence allows it. A faint bioluminescent pulse appears to our left, then another below. Small blue-white answers in the black, not bright enough to reveal the full shape of what lives here, only enough to suggest presence, to suggest movement, to suggest that the abyss is full of hidden bodies opening and closing around us. There is something deeply tender in these little lights. They do not conquer the darkness. They bloom inside it, for a moment only, then fade, like thoughts sinking back into sleep. Ahead, the seafloor bends slightly, and the descent begins to turn. The ridges gather closer on one side, while the other opens into a lower shadow, a hollow, or perhaps the beginning of one. It is difficult to tell where contour ends and darkness begins, but the feeling is unmistakable. The world below is changing again, becoming less like a downward slope and more like an invitation into another concealed basin, another inward place, another resting chamber of the Antarctic deep. The water around that shadow feels calmer still, as if something about lower ground always invites greater stillness, as if the sea settles more deeply wherever the earth gives way beneath it. We approach slowly, passing one more rooted pale form, one more quiet body half hidden in sediment, one more veil of marine snow, And as we near the darker hollow ahead, a new softness enters the descent, not relief, not safety, but a deeper surrender, the kind that comes when there is nothing left to hold on to, no surface memory, no daylight, no sound, only the long, patient voice of the abyss calling us lower. One more shadow, one more fold of the seafloor, one more layer of hidden Antarctic sleep. Now, the slope begins to loosen, and the darker hollow ahead gathers itself into shape, not all at once, never all at once, but gradually, as if the sea is slowly remembering another room beneath the ice, another chamber beneath the chamber, another quiet basin laid down in darkness long ago. The edges appear first, soft rises of stone, low broken boundaries half covered in settled drift, then the floor, a broad dim resting place of sediment and shadow, smooth in some places, interrupted in others by darker outcrops and shallow depressions. Everything here feels lower, more inward, more carefully hidden from the upper world. The water above this basin moves with even greater restraint. It does not sweep. It does not churn. It lingers. It circles in faint, patient motions, as though the hollow itself is teaching the current to slow down, teaching the deep to become deeper, teaching silence to settle more completely. Marine snow falls through that silence, thin and endless, a gentle weather from a vanished brightness. Each particle turning through the water as though it has forgotten where it began. Some drift across the basin floor and disappear into the soft, dark sediment. Others catch for a moment in small, invisible eddies, hovering, lingering, then continuing down. Nothing here ever seems eager to arrive. Everything descends with the patience of sleep. Around the edges of the basin, life remains, quiet as ever. Near one dark rise, a pale anchored cluster opens into the current, its forms delicate, almost translucent, a still bouquet beneath the sea. Farther away, a low-bodied creature rests on the floor itself, so closely matched to the texture of the sediment that only a faint interruption in shape reveals it. This hidden Antarctic world does not separate life from landscape. It blends them, merges them, lets creatures become part of stone, part of drift, part of the long, still imagination of the abyss. We move slowly through the basin, and the feeling here is different, not emptier, but more settled, as if this place has been left undisturbed for a very long time, as if currents pass more softly here, as if the burdens of the upper sea arrive only in traces, a little nutrient, a little falling matter, a little faint motion carried in from afar. Everything that reaches this lower basin has already been softened by distance, filtered by depth, reduced to what the deep can use, and that seems to be enough. Enough for the anchored lives, enough for the drifting lives, enough for whatever hidden forms remain beyond sight in the darker folds of the floor. Perhaps this is what makes Antarctica's abyss feel so unlike other imagined depths. Its mystery is not built from violence, it is built from restraint, from long intervals, from the quiet accumulation of small things. One more layer of sediment, one more season of falling particles, one more century of black water resting beneath the ice, and over immense spans of time, those small things become a world, a hidden order, a cold and patient ecology, continuing without witness. Here, in the basin's dim center, that order feels almost complete, almost self-contained. as if this place could continue forever without being seen, without being named, without ever needing the surface to understand it. A faint blue-white light trembles off to one side, then another deeper in the basin, both brief, both soft. Tiny living answers in the black. Not enough to reveal bodies clearly, only enough to remind us that even now, even in this lower quiet, something is moving. Something is opening and closing in the darkness. Something is alive within the hidden folds of Antarctica. We drift closer to the basin floor, and the texture of it becomes clearer. Fine dark sediment, softly gathered, broken by shallow channels where faint currents have passed again and again. Small ridges, small hollows, a landscape of subtle marks, as if the deep writes gently here, never with force, only with repetition, only with patience, only with the same slow hand of cold that shapes all things beneath the polar sea. There is something almost tender about this low, hidden ground. It holds life without spectacle. It receives the falling world without complaint. It keeps its silence without effort. Everything seems to rest more deeply here. The anchored forms, the half-buried creatures, the water itself. Even our own descent feels quieter, as if the basin is absorbing every movement, softening every thought, drawing everything inward. And as we near its farther edge, that inward feeling begins to change again. The floor does not simply continue flat into darkness. It gathers, then gently falls, a lower cut, a darker seam along the basin's far side, not a sudden drop, but a more deliberate descent, as though this hidden chamber was only another threshold, as though Antarctica has deeper rooms still, deeper resting places, deeper silences waiting beneath the one we have just entered. The farther edge of the basin curves away into blackness, a blackness thicker than the water above us, a blackness that feels shaped, promising another channel, another hollow, another colder region where the hidden world continues. We approach that seam slowly, past one more pale form rooted to stone, past one more low body sleeping against the floor, past one more drifting flicker of bioluminescent breath, and ahead, beyond the basin's quiet boundary, the Antarctic deep opens downward once more, one more chamber behind us, one more descent before us, one more older silence waiting below. Beyond the basin, on the seafloor lowers again, not with violence, not with any sharp dividing line, but with that same patient yielding, that same soft surrender, as if the hidden ground beneath Antarctica has agreed, once more, to open, to fold inward, to let us pass into another deeper layer of its sleep. The darker seam at the basin's edge becomes a true descent now, a sloping cut through stone and sediment, its contours faint, its direction felt more than seen. The water above it seems heavier, more settled, as though depth itself has gathered here for a long time, pressing gently downward, teaching everything that enters this place to move more slowly, to think more softly, to let go of brightness completely. Marine snow continues to fall through the black, always falling, always patient, though here its descent feels lonelier, the white flecks more widely spaced, the drift between them larger, as if the ocean has stretched silence farther apart in this lower passage. Each particle turns once, then again, then settles on ledge or hollow or unseen floor below. 1,000 tiny arrivals, each one quiet, each one almost nothing. And yet together, over long ages, they soften stone, they feed hidden bodies, they help build the lower world. This is how Antarctica's deep creates itself, not with sudden force, but with endless smallness, endless repetition, endless calm. The slope beneath us is uneven, broken in places by narrow shelves, then gathered again into darker runs of sediment. To one side rises a low wall of rock, black and ancient, its surface carrying thin, pale lives attached like fragile thoughts. They open to the current, receive what little it brings, and remain, never reaching beyond their need, never disturbing the dark that protects them. On the other side, the ground fades into thicker shadow, a softer edge where the descent becomes harder to measure. It is there that movement appears, so faint at first, that it seems like a trick of drifting particle, then clearer, a slow, pale body, gliding close to the floor, almost touching the sediment, almost disappearing into it. No haste in its passage, no effort wasted, only the deep intelligence of stillness carried into motion. It crosses the lower slope, then vanishes into the black, leaving behind only the memory of form, only the quiet certainty that life continues here, even where sight can barely hold it. The farther down we move, the less the ocean feels like a place to be explored, and the more it feels like a place to be entered carefully, a place that already exists in completeness. Whether anyone witnesses it or not, that may be the true mystery beneath Antarctica. Not that something astonishing lies hidden there, but that an entire realm of astonishing patience has always endured, cold without complaint, dark without fear, alive without audience. This lower passage deepens that feeling, its silence more complete, its contours more inward, its hidden lives more restrained. Everything here seems shaped by a wisdom older than urgency, a wisdom that understands how to survive by becoming part of the abyss, by yielding to scarcity, by using darkness as shelter, by letting time stretch until it becomes almost indistinguishable from peace. A faint pulse of blue-white appears ahead, then another slightly below it. Small living lights suspended in the black, brief, delicate, gone almost as soon as they bloom. They do not interrupt the passage, they belong to it, like breath belongs to sleep, like drifting snow belongs to winter. Each brief flare suggests a body we never fully see, a form opening, closing, responding to the dark in its own quiet language. And around those tiny lights, the water remains infinite in feeling, even here among slopes and walls, even here where the ground guides our descent. The abyss still carries a sense of endlessness, because darkness does not reveal where it ends. It only reveals what the next moment can bear. A ledge, a pale anchored shape, a drifting creature, a flicker, then shadow again, then another small answer from below. The cut in the seafloor gradually broadens, not into openness, but into a wider, lower reach. A trough, perhaps, or the beginning of one, its floor hidden beneath thicknesses of dark sediment, its edges marked by broken stone and silent rises. This place feels older than the basin above, older than the slope behind us, as if the ocean has been settling into it for a very long time. Layer after layer, silence after silence, dream after dream. There is no drama in this arrival, only deepening, only the strange peace of going lower, only the sense that every chamber beneath Antarctica leads not to an ending, but to another quieter beginning. The water rests heavily here. The marine snow falls more slowly. The pale life attached to stone appears thinner, sparser, as though even nourishment must travel farther to reach these depths. And yet still, life remains, still drifting, still glowing in brief hidden signs, still enduring in forms so soft and careful. They seem almost made from the darkness itself. We move into the wider trough, past one narrow shelf of black stone, past one faint cluster of translucent forms, past one more pale body resting half within the sediment, and ahead, the lower ground continues, curving away into a deeper region of shadow, another hollow, another inward fold, another secret Antarctica has kept beneath its darkest waters, one more patient descent, one more colder room, one more layer of the abyss waiting below, deeper still. The wider trough begins to gather around us, its floor broad and dim, its edges rising only slightly at first, then more clearly, until the water no longer feels open in the old way. It feels held, contained within a lower shape, a hidden reach beneath the hidden reach, a place where the Antarctic deep has folded inward once again. The sediment here is softer in appearance, darker too, spread across the floor in long, quiet stretches, broken now and then by low ridges, by scattered stone, by shallow grooves where faint currents have traced the same path for ages. Nothing looks newly made, nothing feels temporary, everything seems settled into its own silence, as if this trough has had a very long time to become exactly what it is. Marine snow descends through the water above us, not thickly, not like a storm, but in widely scattered whispers, tiny pale fragments drifting down from a world almost impossible to remember now, each one alone for a while, then joined by another and another, until the black water begins to resemble a vast sleeping room, filled with dust-like memories from the vanished light above. Some of those particles settle gently across the floor, adding one more thin layer to the dark softness below. Others drift low through the trough, carried sideways by movements of water so delicate they can barely be felt. Even the currents seem tired here, as if depth has asked them to rest, as if the cold has slowed every hidden motion, until the ocean itself begins to dream. Along one low rise of stone, a cluster of rooted forms opens into the current, translucent, pale, almost like delicate hands held upward in sleep. They do not wave, they do not seek, they simply remain available to what the sea may bring, a little nourishment, a few drifting fragments, one more chance to continue their quiet existence. This is how life persists beneath Antarctica, not with urgency, not with hunger that tears through the dark, but with patience so complete. It becomes a kind of peace, farther out across the trough floor. A low body rests nearly motionless in the sediment, its outline soft, its color almost indistinguishable from the ground beneath it. At first, it seems like another fold in the floor, another subtle contour shaped by current and time. Then one edge shifts, so slightly, so slowly, that the movement feels almost ceremonial, a reminder that stillness here is not emptiness, a reminder that life in the deep often survives by becoming quieter than the world around it. We continue lower through the trough, and the feeling changes again, not dramatically, only inwardly. The darkness becomes more settled, the silence more complete, the space itself more private, as if fewer traces from the upper sea ever reach this place, as if even the drifting snow of the ocean arrives here, softened by immense distance. This is not the bright mystery imagined in surface stories, no sudden beast, no violent secret, only a more ancient truth, that a hidden world can be vast without spectacle, that it can endure without announcing itself, that, beneath Antarctica, the deepest wonder may be how completely life has learned to belong to silence. A faint pulse appears ahead, blue-white, small enough to fit inside a thought, then fades. Another answers from farther away, then another lower down. Brief signals in the black, cold little lights, opening and closing like underwater stars remembering how to sleep. They reveal almost nothing, only presence, only nearness, only the fact that unseen bodies are moving somewhere in this lower dark. That is enough. It has always been enough here. One flicker, one anchored shape, one resting creature half buried in the floor. The deep never offers everything at once. It lets the imagination descend alongside the body, step by step, shadow by shadow, until wonder no longer feels separate from calm. The trough narrows slightly ahead, its floor gathering into a long, gentle channel, not steep, not sharp, just more focused, more guided. As if all this hidden ground beneath the ice is slowly drawing itself toward an older center, a lower region, a farther fold of the abyss. The edges of that channel are marked by broken stone, dark outcrops rising from the sediment like the remains of buried walls between them. The floor appears smoother, untouched except for the faintest grooves, small, slow signatures of the passing water. No sound comes from any of it, only presence, only the powerful quiet of a place that has not needed witness. We drift onward, past one pale cluster anchored to rock, past one low sleeping body on the floor, past one more blue-white whisper of living light. And as the channel deepens before us, the Antarctic Sea seems to soften once again. One more narrowing, one more inward path, one more layer of cold where the hidden world continues to endure, without hurry, without fear, without ever leaving the silence that protects it. The channel ahead grows quieter still, not because the water stops moving, not because life disappears, but because everything seems to become more deliberate here, more careful, more inward. The floor draws itself into a longer line, a dark, patient path beneath the ice-shadowed world above, its edges marked by low stone, its center softened by gathered sediment, as if this hidden route has been shaped slowly, again and again, by currents too gentle to be called restless, by time too deep to be counted. Marine snow still falls through the black water, though now each white fleck feels farther from the next, more alone in the descent, as if the ocean is thinning even memory at this depth. One drifting particle, then darkness, another soft fragment, then darkness again. A quiet spacing, a quiet patience, a quiet lesson in how little is needed for the deep to continue being full. Along one side of the channel, stone rises in a broken dark seam, not high, but enough to guide the eye, enough to give the hidden path a shape. Pale anchored forms cling there, sparse now, farther apart than before, each one opening to the current, each one waiting without demand. The lower we go beneath Antarctica, the less life gathers in abundance, and the more it survives in precision, in care, In small, exact acts of endurance, farther out on the soft floor, a faint contour appears, low, still, almost lost against the sediment. At first, it seems no different from the many quiet shapes left by current and time. Then it shifts, not quickly, not even clearly, only enough to remind us once more that here, stillness is often the truest form of life. The creature rests again, its body settling into the darkness, its outline dissolving back into the channel floor, as if it too understands the law of these waters. Do not rise unless you must. Do not spend more than the cold can spare. Do not break the silence that keeps you hidden. We follow the channel onward, and it begins to deepen in feeling, not merely downward, but inward in a way that changes the mind. The black around us seems softer now, less like empty distance and more like a resting pressure, a surrounding calm, a vast dim enclosure where every sound has already been quiet for a very long time. The Antarctic deep does not frighten in the usual way. It removes the usual things instead: edges, noise, urgency. It takes them gently, layer by layer, until what remains is something simpler: stone, sediment, falling particles, a few patient lives, and the immense, slow breathing of cold water in darkness. A pale blue-white light trembles ahead, then disappears. Moments later, another glows lower in the channel, small, faint, barely enough to touch the black around it. Bioluminescent whispers, not meant to illuminate the world, only to answer it, only to say, something is here. Something is moving softly. Something has learned to speak the language of shadow. These lights do not reveal shape fully, only suggestion, a drifting body, a passing contour, then absence again. And perhaps that is why they feel so beautiful, because they never ask to be seen for long. They arrive the way dreams arrive, briefly, tenderly, then fade before waking can hold them. The floor beneath us changes almost without being noticed. Sediment gathers more thickly in the center of the channel. The side walls become less broken, more smoothed by time, as though countless quiet ages have passed this way, polishing, settling, remembering. There is no sign here of interruption, no mark of sudden force, only long repetition, the work of the deep done softly, done completely, done without witness. That sense of preservation grows stronger as we descend, as if this lower route has remained protected not only by distance, but by character, by the nature of Antarctica itself, a continent that hides through silence, an ocean that conceals through patience, a darkness that guards not by violence, but by the simple fact that so few things can live easily here, and yet some do, some always have, anchored to stone, buried in sediment, drifting through the water in pale, translucent bodies, glowing once, then vanishing again into the calm. This is the hidden generosity of the abyss, that even in such cold, even in such scarcity, even beneath a frozen continent at the edge of the world, life continues, not loudly, not in great crowds, but in enoughness, enough to persist, enough to endure, enough to keep the deep from ever being empty. Ahead, the channel begins to curve, its far edge darkening into a broader shadow. The floor no longer seems content to remain a narrow path. It gathers itself, then gently opens, as if another chamber is waiting beyond the bend, another wider hollow, another place where the ocean has had time to rest more deeply. We move toward that shadow slowly, past one sparse pale colony on the rock wall, past one low sleeping shape upon the floor, past one more faint pulse of cold, living light, and as the curve deepens ahead of us, the Antarctic abyss seems to whisper once more, one more turn, one more hidden room, one more layer of silence, waiting below, beyond the bend. The channel opens at last, not into brightness, not into relief, but into a broader quiet, a lower chamber of dark water and resting ground, as if the hidden path beneath Antarctica has paused for a moment, to breathe more deeply, to widen its silence, to let the abyss unfold in another secret shape. The floor here feels softer, more settled, long reaches of fine, dark sediment lying almost untouched, interrupted only by scattered stone, by low ridges, by shallow hollows where the drifting matter of ages has gathered and remained. Nothing disturbs this place quickly. Nothing marks it with haste. Everything appears arranged by patience alone. Marine snow continues to descend, thinly, tenderly, its pale fragments falling through the black like the slowest weather in the world. Some settle at once upon the chamber floor, softening its contours, softening even the darker stones that rise from it. Others drift farther, turning once in the current, then again, as if unwilling to arrive too soon, as if even the smallest pieces of the upper world must learn a gentler rhythm before they can enter this deeper room. Around us, the water feels fuller, not heavier in a way that burdens, but fuller in silence, as though the chamber holds stillness the way a valley holds mist, as though the cold itself has collected here, layer upon layer, until the darkness has become almost velvety, almost sheltering. Along one low rise of stone, life gathers in sparse pale forms, delicate bodies fixed to the rock, open to whatever the water may offer. They are not many, and they do not need to be. Each one seems complete in its own patience, each one shaped by the same quiet rule that governs everything below the Antarctic ice. Take little, waste nothing, remain. Farther out across the dark floor, a faint body rests half buried in sediment, so still, so perfectly folded into the ground, that it seems less like an animal and more like a soft thought the seafloor has chosen to keep, only when one edge shifts. Almost imperceptibly does the illusion loosen, and even then, only slightly. The creature does not flee, does not announce itself. It simply resumes its resting, as if movement itself were expensive, as if stillness were the truest form of wisdom here. We drift through the chamber slowly, and as we do, the sense of the upper world fades even more completely. There is no memory of sky now, no trace of silver water, no hint of wind above the ice, only the long interior of the deep. Stone, sediment, falling particles, scattered pale life, and darkness layered so gently around everything. It begins to feel less like a place beneath the world, and more like a place beneath thought itself, a level of existence where noise has been surrendered, where urgency has been forgotten, where survival is no longer a struggle against the abyss, but a quiet agreement with it. A faint blue-white pulse appears near the far side of the chamber, then another, then nothing. Just enough light to stir the dark, just enough to suggest a drifting body turning somewhere beyond clear sight. These brief glows feel softer here, less like signals, more like breathing, as if the hidden creatures of this depth are answering the abyss in whispers, never trying to break the darkness, only touching it lightly, then letting it close again. There is tenderness in that, a strange, deep tenderness, because nothing here tries to dominate its world. Everything belongs by restraint, by adaptation, by becoming gentle enough to endure. Perhaps that is what Antarctica teaches in its lower waters, that there are ways of living which do not depend on speed, or brightness, or display. There are ways of continuing that ask instead for stillness, for exactness, for the ability to remain where almost nothing is given. And yet life remains, anchored to rock, resting in sediment, drifting like transparent breath through the black. The chamber floor changes as we move farther through it. The sediment thickens in one place, then parts around a dark outcrop of stone. Beyond it lies a shallow depression, then another. Subtle shapes, barely visible, yet enough to suggest that this room is not a final resting place, only another fold of the seafloor, another hidden pause before the next descent begins. That is the quiet truth of Antarctica's abyss. Each chamber seems complete, and yet each one opens toward another deeper silence, another level of cold, another world concealed beneath the one before it. The farther edge of this broad chamber begins to darken now, not simply because the light is gone, but because the ground itself is lowering again, gathering into a deeper line, a longer shadow, a downward seam leading away from the still floor where we have been drifting. It is gentle at first, almost uncertain, then clearer, a path continuing below, a darker route through the hidden architecture of the Antarctic deep. We approach it slowly, passing one pale rooted cluster upon the stone, passing one resting body nearly lost in the sediment, passing one final cold flicker of bioluminescent breath, and as the chamber begins to fall away beneath us, the old rhythm returns. One more opening, one more inward fold, one more descent into the buried silence beneath Antarctica's darkest waters, and so the chamber is left behind. Not all at once, but gently, its soft floor, its scattered stone, its pale anchored lives, all of it receding into shadow, as the downward seam ahead becomes our new path, a darker line, a quieter line, a place where the hidden world beneath Antarctica begins to fold inward once more. The seafloor lowers with great patience, no sudden edge, no dramatic fall, only a calm surrender of ground into deeper blackness, as if the earth itself is exhaling here, as if the buried floor has been waiting a very long time to let us pass into this next lower silence. Marine snow still falls around us, though now it feels thinner, more delicate, as if only the smallest remnants of the upper world can reach so far. A single pale fleck turning in the water, then darkness, another drifting fragment, then darkness again. The spacing between things grows larger here, the quiet between signs of life grows wider, and yet that widening does not feel empty. It feels protected, protected by cold, protected by depth, protected by the immense stillness that Antarctica lays over everything beneath it. Along the descending seam, stone rises in broken shelves, dark, ancient, barely touched except by the soft, patient hand of current and sediment in the cracks and on the ledges. Sparse living forms remain, thin, pale bodies anchored to the rock, open to the water, open to whatever nourishment the abyss allows. They seem fewer now, more widely scattered. But perhaps that only makes them feel more precious. Each one a small decision by life to continue. Each one a quiet refusal to vanish completely. Farther down, on a smoother stretch of seafloor, a long, faint shape lies within the sediment, almost impossible to separate from the darkness around it, its outline revealed only by stillness of a different kind, a stillness that belongs not to stone, but to something resting, something aware in its own distant way. It does not move as we pass, or if it does, it is too subtle for sight to keep. This is often how the Antarctic deep speaks, not in clear declarations, but in almosts. Almost a body, almost a light, almost a movement in the black. And because of that, the imagination must soften too, must learn not to demand too much, must accept the deep on its own terms. One flicker, one contour, one more hidden presence beneath the ice. The descent continues, and the water feels altered again. Not colder in any simple sense, but quieter in its weight, more absolute, as though every lower layer takes one more thing away. First the memory of daylight, then the memory of surface, then the memory of open space, until only depth remains. Depth and the slow, inward breathing of the sea. A faint blue-white glow appears ahead, briefly, then vanishes. Another answers from farther below, then another to one side. Small living pulses, barely enough to mark the darkness, yet enough to give it secret texture, enough to remind us that this lower seam is inhabited, that hidden bodies still drift here, still open and close in the cold. Still answer the absence of sunlight with their own quiet language. These lights feel lonelier at this depth, not sad, only more solitary, as if each one exists at a great distance from the next, separated by black water, by silence, by the immense privacy of the abyss, and yet together. They form a kind of constellation, not above us, but within the sea itself, a submerged sky of brief living stars. We follow the seam downward, past a low terrace of stone, past a shallow hollow where sediment has gathered thick and soft, past another rooted pale form almost erased by shadow. Everything here seems to survive by becoming less visible, less hurried, less demanding, and in becoming less, it becomes lasting. That may be the deepest wisdom of Antarctica's waters, that endurance does not always belong to what is strongest. Sometimes it belongs to what can yield, what can wait, what can become quiet enough to remain. The seam begins to widen now, not fully, not yet, but enough to suggest another change ahead. The stone shelves grow farther apart. The floor between them deepens into a dim, lower run. A narrow trough, perhaps, or the beginning of one, its center lost in black sediment and soft, drifting particles, its farther reaches hidden beyond the limit of easy sight. The feeling of preservation deepens here, as if few disturbances have ever crossed this place, as if the ocean laid down this path and then kept watch over it for ages. Above us, no trace remains of the chamber, no trace remains of anything bright. Around us, only layered dark water, occasional glimmers of pale life, the endless quiet snowfall of the sea, and below, this new lower shape, gathering itself out of shadow, inviting us on, not with force, but with that same ancient patience, that same slow calling. One more descent, one more hidden seam, one more deeper fold of Antarctica's sleeping abyss. Below the widening seam, the shape of the sea floor begins to settle into something new, not a chamber, not a simple slope, but a long, dim trough, narrower in feeling, more guided, as if the Antarctic deep is drawing us through one of its quieter passages, a lower road of stone and sediment, a hidden line laid carefully beneath all the worlds of ice above. Its floor is soft in places, dark with gathered drift, then suddenly broken by low outcrops, by ridges half buried in fine black sediment, by shallow channels where the faintest currents still remember how to move. Nothing here feels random. Even the smallest contour seems placed by repetition, by long returnings of water, by slow deposit, by the endless patience of cold. Marine snow continues to descend, though it seems almost lonely now, each pale fragment falling through immense distances of black, alone for a while, then joined by another, then another farther off, small white memories from a brighter world, arriving one by one in the hidden trough beneath Antarctica. Some settle gently upon the dark floor, softening its ridges, touching stone with quiet, dust-like grace. Others drift low and sideways, caught by a current too soft to be noticed directly, a current that only reveals itself by what it carries, by what it delays, by what it finally allows to rest. Along one side of the trough, stone rises in a broken ledge, black and motionless, and from that ledge a few pale living forms extend themselves into the water, thin, translucent, almost too delicate for such a place, yet here they remain, receiving what the sea offers, taking only what arrives, continuing by means of patience rather than search. The deeper we go beneath Antarctica, the more life seems to exist by trust. Trust in the current, trust in slowness, trust in the idea that enough will come. If one can wait long enough. Farther down the trough, a low shape rests upon the sediment, rounded at one edge, fading into shadow at the other. It appears at first like another rise in the floor, another quiet part of the landscape. Then one margin alters, only slightly, only enough for the stillness to change character. Not stone, not drift, but a living body, resting so completely in the hidden law of this place. That movement no longer feels necessary. We pass it without disturbing anything, and it remains as it is, folded into the darkness, held by it, almost protected by it. The trough continues in long dark stretches, then narrows for a time between two low ridges, then opens again into a smoother run of fine sediment. This repeated folding, this alternating of constriction and release, makes the seafloor feel almost breath-like, as if the Antarctic abyss itself inhales and exhales through these buried forms, holding silence close, then letting it open, then drawing it inward again. A faint blue-white pulse appears in the water ahead, then another, slightly deeper, then none. Only blackness returning around us. These living glows feel more distant now, not because they are rare, but because the trough seems to stretch the darkness between them. Each light becomes a small, solitary answer, a brief proof of hidden motion, a brief proof that even here, where cold has softened everything into restraint, life still finds its own careful way to speak, and as always, it speaks quietly, never enough to overwhelm the dark, only enough to belong within it. There is a growing sense here, that we are traveling not just deeper into water, but deeper into preservation, into a world kept so far from ordinary disturbance that time itself seems to settle differently. Nothing urges itself forward. Nothing behaves as if tomorrow must come quickly. The stone waits. The sediment waits. The rooted, pale lives wait. Even the drifting creatures move with the calm of things that have no reason to hurry. Perhaps that is why the Antarctic deep feels less like wilderness and more like memory. A memory the Earth has never fully forgotten. A memory of slowness, of silence, of life learning how to continue where comfort never arrives. The farther edge of the trough begins to change now. One side lowers into a softer darkness. The other rises briefly in rough stone. Between them, the floor curves away, not sharply, but enough to suggest another turn below, another hidden contour, another inward movement of the abyss. Marine snow drifts into that curve and vanishes, a pale fragment visible for a moment, then gone into lower black, as if the sea is pulling every sign gently onward, leading everything downward, one more layer at a time. We follow slowly, past one sparse colony of anchored pale bodies, past one resting creature nearly indistinguishable from the floor, past one flicker of bioluminescent breath, gone before it can become a true light, and ahead. The trough bends farther into shadow, toward another concealed descent, another subtle turning of the seafloor, another deeper silence Antarctica has kept beneath its frozen sleep. Around the bend, the trough changes, once again, not by ending, but by deepening its intention. The floor curves inward, the ridges grow quieter, and the darkness ahead seems to gather itself with greater care, as if this next lower path has been hidden more gently, more completely, more deeply within Antarctica's long, sleeping waters. Marine snow follows us into the turn, a few pale fragments descending through the black, then disappearing against the lower curve of the seafloor. Their slow falling feels softer here, almost hesitant, as though even these tiny remnants of the world above sense that the abyss below has become more private, more withdrawn, more wholly its own. The trough narrows for a while, its edges marked by dark stone, worn smooth in some places, broken in others. Low ledges emerge, then vanish beneath a fine gathering of sediment. The floor between them is quiet and dark, a long ribbon of softness, interrupted only by faint hollows, by slight rises, by the gentle signatures of currents too subtle to be seen directly. Nothing announces itself here, not the ground, not the life upon it, not the water itself. Everything continues through suggestion, through restraint, through the deep discipline of remaining almost hidden. Along one low shelf of rock, a few pale forms are fixed in place, thin-bodied, delicate, open to the slow passing water. They seem fewer than before, more alone against the stone, as if each life here has learned to endure in near solitude, taking from the sea only the smallest necessary gift, one drifting fragment, one faint current, one more quiet chance to remain. Farther ahead, where the floor darkens beneath an overhang of stone, a shape lies half within the sediment, its body so still, so closely matched to the texture around it, that it appears less like an animal and more like the sea floor remembering its own softness. Only the gentlest change along its outline tells another story, a story of hidden breathing, hidden awareness, hidden life resting in complete agreement with the abyss. We pass it slowly, and it does not rise, it does not flee, it simply remains. As though motion would only disturb the protection darkness has given it, the trough floor lowers in stages now, a smooth descent, then a shallow shelf, then another quieter fall. Each level seems to hold its own kind of silence, its own degree of inwardness, its own small community of hidden things. A rooted pale colony clinging to stone, a half-buried body pressed into sediment, a brief cold flicker opening somewhere in the water, then closing again. Nothing gathers in abundance, everything persists in enoughness. Enough light to hint, enough movement to reveal life, enough nourishment to endure. And perhaps that is why the Antarctic deep feels so tender at times, because it shows how little is required for wonder to continue. A single drifting body, a single rooted form, a single pulse of bioluminescence. These are enough to keep the abyss from ever becoming empty, enough to make darkness feel inhabited, enough to make silence feel alive. Ahead, a blue-white glow appears near the floor, small, soft, then fades. Another answers farther into the bend, lower and dimmer, as though the hidden creatures of this depth are speaking to one another through sleep. Not with words, not with any urgency, only with brief acknowledgments of presence. I am here. You are here. The dark is still around us, then blackness again. The water in this lower reach feels calmer than calm, not lifeless, not frozen in place, but so measured, so free of haste, that it begins to seem like time itself has slowed inside it. Every particle falls more gently, every contour forms more patiently. Every hidden life appears to exist in a rhythm far older than anything at the surface. This is the quiet majesty of Antarctica's abyss, that it does not astonish by violence, it astonishes by endurance, by the sheer softness with which life and stone and darkness have learned to remain together, century after century, layer after layer, without needing witness, without asking to be understood. The trough widens a little now, not into openness, but into a lower reach where the floor becomes smoother, more uniform, a dim pathway of dark sediment stretching ahead, its edges fading into thicker shadow, as if another hidden basin may be forming there, or perhaps the beginning of one. It is difficult to tell where passage becomes chamber in a place like this. The abyss prefers transitions, prefers folds, prefers the patient blurring of one world into the next. Marine snow drifts toward that smoother ground and settles. A faint, pale creature passes once through the water above it, almost transparent, gone before the eye can fully hold its shape. Then stillness returns, deep, complete, protective. We move onward, past one lonely colony fixed to stone, past one resting body nearly erased by the floor, past one more bioluminescent whisper in the black, and ahead, the smoother lower reach begins to gather in silence. One more hidden floor, one more softer chamber, one more layer of Antarctica folding inward beneath us. Ahead, the smoother reach begins to settle into shape, not fully open, not fully enclosed, but something between. A quiet lower floor, a resting place in the dark, as if the trough has softened itself, as if the Antarctic abyss has decided, for a little while, to become gentler in form. The sediment here lies deep and even, a dark, fine softness spread across the ground, like sleep itself. Only here and there does stone rise through it. Low outcrops, broken humps, scattered dark bones of the seafloor, half covered by the patient fall of marine snow. Everything appears subdued. Everything appears softened by long ages of calm deposition. Nothing feels newly touched. Nothing feels hurried into being. Marine snow continues to descend above this lower floor, thinly, endlessly, each particle drifting like a pale memory through the black. Some settle at once into the fine, dark sediment, others linger, suspended for a few moments in motions too delicate to name. Then they, too, come to rest, adding one more invisible layer to a world built slowly from fragments. This is how the deep remembers, not in voices, not in marks carved sharply into stone, but in accumulation, in soft arrivals, in matter falling for so long. That time becomes part of the ground. Along one dark rise, a rooted pale colony opens into the water, small and sparse, its translucent forms barely brighter than the darkness around them. They do not gather in great clusters here. They stand apart, separated by stretches of black sediment and quiet water, each life alone, yet still part of the same hidden order. The farther we go beneath Antarctica, the more solitude seems woven into survival. Not loneliness, only distance, only the quiet spacing of things that have learned to endure without crowding the dark. Farther across the soft floor, a faint, elongated shape lies pressed into the sediment, its body nearly erased by stillness, its outline visible only because one edge catches a trace of pale drift. For a moment it seems like nothing more than a shadow within shadow. Then the contour changes, barely. A subtle living adjustment, the smallest proof of awareness, then stillness returns, complete as before. This is the language of the lower abyss, not display, not movement for its own sake, only brief confirmations, a shift, a glow, a drifting passage through black water, then concealment again. Then silence. We continue through the smoother basin-like floor, and the feeling here is strangely peaceful. More peaceful, perhaps, than any place above, because nothing competes, nothing insists, nothing breaks the quiet unless it must. The water rests over the sediment like an enormous unseen veil. The stone beneath remains where it has remained for ages. The few hidden creatures continue their patient lives, and all of it feels held within a kind of ancient agreement, a promise between cold and darkness, that whatever survives here will be protected by stillness. A blue-white pulse appears far ahead, then another lower down, then nothing. Only the black floor opening beyond them. These bioluminescent whispers feel softer than ever in this wider, lower reach. They do not point the way. They do not reveal the shape of the place. They merely touch it, lightly, for a breath, for a thought, then leave it unchanged. It is enough. One brief pulse is enough to make the basin feel inhabited. One faint, moving glow is enough to remind us that even at these depths, even this far beneath the Antarctic ice, life continues in hidden conversation with the dark. The floor beneath us grows subtly uneven now, a shallow hollow here, a long low rise there, then a darker region where the sediment seems to gather more thickly. These changes are delicate, almost invisible at first, but they accumulate, and with them comes the feeling that this smoother reach is not a final pause, only another soft threshold, another hidden room before the next descent. That is the nature of this buried world. It never ends by announcing an end. It only folds again, one chamber into another, one trough into another basin, one silence into another deeper silence, and each fold seems older, more inward, more completely removed from the bright life of the surface. The farther edge of the floor begins to darken, not simply because sight cannot reach it, but because the ground there is lowering once more, a dim seam gathering at the boundary, a new descent being prepared by shadow. Marine snow drifts toward it and disappears, a pale fragment visible for one moment, then gone into the black below, as if the seafloor is quietly drawing everything onward, drawing every trace downward into one more hidden fold beneath Antarctica. We move slowly toward that darkening edge, past one sparse pale-rooted form upon stone, past one resting creature almost fully merged with the sediment, past one last cold blink of living light, and ahead. The basin floor begins to fall away, one more seam, one more lower path, one more patient descent into the sleeping architecture of the Antarctic deep. At the basin's far edge, the dark seam becomes clearer, a lowering of ground, a gathering of shadow, a quiet invitation into another depth, not sudden, never sudden, only the gentle recognition that the world beneath Antarctica still has farther rooms to reveal. The floor softens toward the seam, and dark sediment slipping gradually into a lower angle. Stone appears in broken places, then disappears again beneath fine layers of settled drift. Everything here feels prepared by patience, as if the abyss has been shaping this descent for a very long time, with no need to hurry, with no witness required. Marine snow continues its pale falling, thin fragments, slow fragments, white traces from a world now impossibly far above. Some settle before reaching the seam, softening the basin's last quiet stretch. Others continue over the edge, turning once in the black, then descending out of sight, as if even these smallest remains are being drawn gently into deeper sleep. Along one exposed shelf of rock, a few anchored bodies remain, pale, sparse, nearly still enough to be mistaken for frost. They open to the water with no urgency, receive what drifts to them, and continue. This lower Antarctic world asks so little, and yet from that little, life persists. Not richly, not loudly, but persistently, beautifully. In the exact measure that the deep allows, the seam grows steeper in feeling. Though still it never becomes harsh, the descent remains calm, a long dim slide between dark ledges and softer runs of sediment. At one turn in the slope, a low shape rests near the floor, half hidden, almost dissolved into the darkness around it. Its body gives away nothing at first, only contour, only a quiet interruption in the smoothness of the ground. Then the faintest motion, a soft shift along one edge, enough to remind us. That stillness here is often shared by stone and animal alike. We pass on slowly, and the shape returns to invisibility. The water around the seam feels deeper than what came before, not colder in any language the body can easily hold, but more complete in silence, more settled, more inward. As if each lower layer beneath Antarctica gathers not only shadow, but peace. A peace without ease, a peace without comfort, yet peace still, the kind that belongs to worlds no longer touched by hurry. A blue-white light appears below us, small and solitary, then vanishes. Another answers farther down the seam, then another to one side, not enough to illuminate, only enough to suggest life moving quietly through the passage. These faint glimmers feel far apart now, separated by broad distances of black water, each one alone for a moment, then gone, like thoughts rising briefly in sleep, then sinking again. The lower we go, the more the abyss seems to prefer this kind of speaking, a pulse, a pause, a hidden body drifting through darkness, then absence once more. The slope begins to curve as it descends, drawing itself into a deeper inward line. Stone lifts on one side, dark and worn, while the other side opens into softer sediment. This asymmetry makes the place feel more secretive, more shaped, as if we are no longer descending through a general depth, but through one chosen path, one buried route the seafloor has kept concealed beneath endless layers of water and ice. Marine snow follows the curve. A few particles catching momentarily near a ledge, then continuing down. Even the falling fragments seem quieter here, their slow movement more solemn, their whiteness more fragile against the surrounding dark. Nothing in this lower seam feels wasteful. Every contour matters, every drifting speck matters, every rooted pale form on the stone, every hidden body pressed into the floor. Everything survives by exactness, by taking only what is needed, by remaining within the rules the abyss has written. Perhaps that is why these depths feel almost sacred, because nothing breaks the order, nothing behaves as if it is separate from the whole: stone, water, sediment, life, all of it moving at the same careful pace, all of it held within the same immense silence. Ahead, the slope begins to ease a little, not into openness, not yet, but into a darker, lower reach, a place where the seam seems ready to become something else, perhaps a trough, perhaps another chamber, perhaps only a wider pause before the next descent begins. It is difficult to know in a world where transitions never fully reveal themselves, but the feeling is clear. Another hidden room is forming below. We drift toward it slowly, past one pale anchored colony clinging to the rock, past one resting creature nearly erased by the floor, past one final blue-white whisper that blooms and fades without showing its source. And as the seam relaxes into that lower dark, the old rhythm returns once more, one more descent completed, one more basin waiting, one more silent fold beneath Antarctica's darkest waters, below the seam. The seafloor opens again, not widely, not with any feeling of release, but with a quieter broadening, a lower reach of dark sediment and soft hidden contours, as if the Antarctic abyss has taken one slow breath and let the descent rest for a moment inside it. The floor here feels smooth from a distance, yet as we drift farther in, small shapes begin to gather from the black. Low rises, shallow hollows, broken places where stone presses through the sediment like old bones beneath sleep. Nothing is sharply defined. Everything appears softened by long falling layers, long ages of marine snow, long patience from water that never learned to hurry. Marine snow continues to descend above this lower reach, white fragments, few and far between, each one drifting through immense silence, each one arriving without sound. Some settle over the shallow hollows, softening them further. Others catch briefly in currents too delicate to name, then continue down into the dark floor. It is impossible to watch these pale particles and not feel time differently. Here, Everything arrives slowly enough to seem eternal. Everything settles slowly enough to seem merciful. Along one low outcrop, a sparse cluster of pale, anchored life extends itself into the water. Thin bodies, translucent edges, quiet persistence held to stone. They do not appear fragile in the ordinary sense. They appear exact, made only of what is necessary, shaped by a world where excess would not survive. The deeper reaches beneath Antarctica teach that lesson endlessly. Take little, remain, let silence protect you. Farther across the floor, a long, faint form lies against the sediment, its outline almost erased, its body so completely at rest that it seems like part of the basin itself, only when the contour alters by the smallest degree. A soft, living adjustment. Does the illusion lift? Then stillness returns, and the creature becomes once more a hidden part of the ground. This is how life continues here, by nearing invisibility. By becoming patient enough, quiet enough, still enough, to belong to the abyss without disturbing it. The water in this lower reach feels unusually calm, not empty, never empty, but gently sealed, as if fewer currents pass through, as if the upper world has almost no influence here now. The cold settles evenly through the black. The sediment holds the floor in dark softness. The scattered anchored forms remain open to whatever drifts by. And everything together creates the feeling of a place deeply preserved, not abandoned, not forgotten, but preserved, kept in its own long condition of hidden life. A faint blue-white pulse appears off to one side, then another farther ahead, small bioluminescent breaths, no brighter than memory, no longer lasting than a thought. Yet they change the darkness all the same. They give it inhabitants, they give it reply. They let the abyss whisper back, some unseen body drifting through the water, some hidden soft form opening and closing in silence, some quiet continuation of life beyond clear sight. These glows never reveal enough, and perhaps that is why they feel so true to this place. Nothing beneath Antarctica reveals itself completely. Not the floor, not the creatures, not the pathways leading downward. Everything is partial, everything is folded, everything asks to be received slowly. The lower reach begins to gather shape ahead, its broad floor drawing subtly inward, one side lifting in darker stone, the other lowering into thicker sediment and deeper shadow. A path is forming again, not a strong path, not an obvious one, but a suggestion. A quieter channel beginning to draw itself out of the basin floor. Marine snow drifts into that gathering darkness and disappears. A pale fleck visible, then gone, as if the hidden path is already pulling things softly toward it, even before it fully reveals its form. The farther we move, the more the lower reach feels transitional, no longer simply a resting floor, not yet a true passage, something in between. A place where the seafloor is deciding how to fold next, how to continue its buried architecture beneath the ice. There is no final chamber here, no last secret waiting to end the descent, only continuation, only one hidden shape leading quietly into another, one silence answering the silence before it. We move onward, past one lonely, pale, rooted colony against the stone, past one sleeping body merged with the sediment, past one more faint, cold pulse in the water, and ahead. The basin floor narrows softly into dark. One more channel, one more inward line, One more patient descent waiting below Antarctica's frozen sleep. Ahead, the lower reach begins to narrow so gently, so quietly, that for a while it feels like only a change in mood, a slight drawing inward of the seafloor, a soft gathering of darkness along the edges, a hidden decision made by the abyss itself to become a path once more. The sediment floor that seemed broad only moments ago now leans toward a darker center. Stone rises in broken intervals along one side, while the other fades into soft shadow and drifting black. Nothing here forms with a hard line. Nothing suddenly declares itself. The Antarctic deep prefers suggestion, prefers transitions, prefers the long, patient unfolding of one shape into another. Marine snow continues to fall, a few pale fragments moving through the water above the narrowing floor, each one alone, each one descending through immense silence. Some settle quickly upon the dark sediment, leaving no visible trace beyond one more invisible layer of memory. Others drift toward the darkening center of the path, then disappear into it, as if even these quiet remnants of the world above are being welcomed into a more hidden order below. Along the rising stone, a few pale anchored lives remain, sparse and delicate, barely brighter than the darkness surrounding them, each one fixed in place, each one open to the current, receiving whatever faint nourishment the abyss permits. These lives do not gather in abundance, they endure in spacing, in precision, in solitude. And because of that, they seem perfectly suited to this lower passage, where everything is reduced to its gentlest necessity. Farther along the darkening center, a shape lies so close to the floor, so merged with the sediment, that it seems for a moment like nothing more than a smooth shadow. Then one edge changes, only slightly, only enough for life to reveal itself, a soft adjustment, a slow, hidden awareness. Then stillness again. The creature does not leave, does not rise. It remains within the shape of the world around it, as if the safest way to continue here is to become almost indistinguishable from the abyss itself. The new channel deepens in feeling, not steeply, not dramatically, but inwardly. The water above it seems heavier with quiet, more complete in its darkness, as though this narrower line has carried the weight of many ages, as though countless patient currents have passed here softly, polishing, settling, remembering. There is a profound calm in that thought that the seafloor beneath Antarctica has been shaped not by sudden force alone, but by endless repetition, by the same gentle movements returning again and again, until silence itself begins to leave a form behind. A faint blue-white pulse appears near the floor, then another farther ahead, then nothing. The black closes again around the channel. These bioluminescent whispers feel especially distant here, each one separated by long stretches of shadow, each one small enough to seem almost imaginary, yet each one real, each one a sign that the hidden life of the Antarctic deep continues, drifting, opening, closing, responding to darkness with its own brief language of light. They do not break the silence, they become part of it, like small thoughts appearing in sleep, then fading before waking can hold them. The farther we follow the narrowing channel, the more the world above loses even its memory. No trace of surface, no trace of silver water under ice, no trace of wind or sky or the frozen continent itself. Only this lower path, This dark floor, this slow conversation between sediment and stone, between hidden bodies and passing currents, between life and the deep silence that protects it. Perhaps that is what makes the Antarctic abyss feel so unlike any ordinary emptiness. It is never merely absence. It is a hidden completeness, a world reduced to essentials: cold, darkness, patience, endurance, and within those few conditions a whole quiet ecology continues, unseen, unguessed at, perfectly adapted to the long buried rhythm of the sea. The channel bends slightly ahead, its center growing darker, its sides rising just enough to make the path feel more enclosed, more guided, more secretive. Marine snow follows the bend and vanishes into the deeper line, a few particles visible for a breath, then gone. The effect is almost like watching memory disappear, like seeing the last pale thoughts of the upper world sink into a more ancient sleep. Along one low ledge, a final rooted pale form clings to stone. Beyond it, a broader patch of unmarked sediment lies untouched. Then farther on, the channel lowers again, subtly, surely, preparing another fold in the deep, another hidden run beneath the frozen continent. We drift toward it slowly, past one more anchored life, past one nearly invisible body resting within the floor, past one last cold flicker that blooms and fades in the black water beside us, and ahead. The channel continues downward, one more curve, one more quieter passage, one more layer of Antarctica's sleeping abyss still waiting below, and still the channel continues, not as a road in any human sense, not as something designed to lead, but as a slow intention in the seafloor, a quiet narrowing of the abyss, a darker thought carried beneath Antarctica's oldest waters. Its floor remains soft with sediment, though now the softness seems deeper, more settled, as if ages of falling marine snow have gathered here without interruption. Stone appears only in brief, low rises, dark ridges half buried in the floor, small interruptions in the smooth black path, nothing sharp, nothing abrupt. Even the broken places have been gentled by time. Marine snow keeps falling. Few pale fragments in a world that has nearly forgotten brightness, each one drifting without sound, each one resting at last on the hidden ground below. Some settle at once, softening one low ridge, touching one shallow hollow, adding one more invisible layer to the quiet history of the channel. Others continue farther, following the path downward, as though the channel itself has learned how to gather things, how to draw them inward, how to keep the remnants of the upper world moving toward deeper sleep. Along the right-hand rise, a pale-rooted colony clings to the stone, sparse, delicate, its translucent bodies open to the passing water with complete calm. No sign of struggle, no sign of urgency, only presence, only endurance, only the still certainty that enough will come if patience is long enough. That is the rule of this lower Antarctic world, not abundance, not possession, but trust in the slow arrival of what is needed. Farther down, a low body lies folded into the sediment, almost without contour, almost without distinction from the floor itself. Only the faint difference in stillness reveals it. Stone is still one way, life is still another. And in these depths, the difference is so slight, so beautifully slight, that it feels less like separation and more like kinship. The creature does not move as we pass. Or perhaps it moves so slowly that time itself keeps the secret. Either way, it remains, quietly preserved in darkness, protected by the very invisibility it has become. The channel deepens gently, its center lowering by small degrees, its sides gathering close enough to hold the eye, then easing apart again. This repeated shaping gives the place a rhythm, a slow breathing rhythm, as though the seafloor beneath Antarctica is not fixed and silent, but thinking in contours, remembering in folds, one narrowing, one release, one deeper line after another. A faint blue-white pulse appears ahead, then another lower still, then blackness returns. These living lights now feel less like events and more like punctuation, soft pauses in the sentence of the abyss, a brief note, a quiet answer. Then the deep continues, speaking without them. They reveal almost nothing, and yet they are enough. Enough to let us know that hidden bodies still drift here, still bloom with light for a moment, still continue their patient lives in the lower channel beneath the ice. The water around us feels even more complete in silence, not oppressive, not threatening, only full, as if every unnecessary thing has already been removed: sound, color, warmth, haste, leaving only what the abyss chooses to keep: darkness, cold, sediment, stone, a few rooted lives, a few drifting lives, a few small lights that appear and vanish like dreams. This reduction does not make the world poorer. It makes it clearer. It shows what can survive without distraction, what can remain when almost everything has been taken away. And that is part of Antarctica's quiet power. It reveals a form of life built not on excess, but on exactness, not on display, but on endurance. Ahead, the channel begins another turn, a subtle curve through darker sediment, one side lifting in rougher stone, the other side lowering into shadow, so soft it almost seems liquid. Marine snow drifts into that curve and disappears, a few pale particles visible for one breath, then swallowed by black again. As always, the deep does not reveal where the turn leads. It only offers the next shape, the next fold, the next quiet step downward. We follow it, past one sparse anchored colony upon the stone, past one nearly hidden body resting within the floor, past one more bioluminescent flicker that glows and fades before form can be held, and ahead. The curve deepens, the channel lowers, and Antarctica keeps drawing us inward. One more bend, one more darkened path, one more patient descent beneath its frozen sleep. Beyond the curve, the channel grows quieter again, as if silence itself has deepened, as if the black water has settled more completely into its own cold breathing. The floor remains soft beneath us, a long dark ribbon of gathered sediment, but now its edges feel more distant in one moment, then closer in the next, the passage shifting gently between openness and enclosure, never fully one, never fully the other, always becoming, always folding into another shape beneath Antarctica's sleeping sea. Marine snow continues to fall, though now each pale particle seems almost ceremonial. A tiny descent within a greater descent, a small white thought moving through immense black. Some settle on the channel floor at once, vanishing into the softness below. Others linger in the water, suspended briefly in motions too subtle to see. Then they too are lowered, drawn down by time, by gravity, by the old patient invitation of the deep. Along one low ridge of stone, a few translucent anchored forms remain. even more sparse than before, their bodies open to the current with complete stillness, no reaching beyond what the water offers, no restlessness, only acceptance, only the quiet discipline of enduring where little arrives. This is how the hidden world continues. Not by abundance, but by measure, not by force, but by fitting itself exactly to the conditions of darkness and cold. Farther down the channel, a faint contour lies within the floor, almost too soft to call a body, a long, low interruption in the sediment, barely visible, barely separate from the abyss surrounding it. Then one edge shifts. A slight living correction, a movement so small it feels more like breath than motion. Then stillness returns, and the shape folds back into the channel's dark grammar, stone, sediment, life, all nearly speaking the same language now. The farther we descend, the less separation there seems to be between creature and place. Everything is becoming a part of everything else. The channel narrows briefly ahead, its sides gathering in dark rises of stone and thicker sediment, not enough to trap, only enough to guide, to make the path feel chosen, as though the seafloor beneath Antarctica has many ways of continuing, but has opened only one for us. Only one quiet line through the hidden architecture of the abyss. A faint blue-white pulse appears near the narrowing, then another lower down, then a third farther to one side, small, lonely lights, soft signs of hidden life moving through the black. They do not join into brightness. They remain separate, brief, private, each one carrying its own little world of unseen motion, one drifting body, one opened form, one moment of contact with darkness. Then blackness closes again. This is how the abyss teaches patience. It never gives too much at once. It offers one sign, then silence, one contour, then shadow, one hidden life, then the vast surrounding calm. And somehow that makes the world feel fuller, not emptier, because mystery held gently is a kind of presence, a promise that what remains unseen is not absent, only resting deeper than sight can easily follow. The narrowing eases at last, and the channel floor becomes smoother, more even, a low, dark run stretching ahead beneath water that feels calmer than any water should, not still in the lifeless sense, but still in the completed sense, as though it has reached a condition beyond disturbance. Marine snow drifts over that smoother run and settles, faintly, tenderly, each white fleck joining countless others already lost within the floor. Nothing here resists burial, nothing here resists time. The abyss keeps everything slowly, and keeps it well. That deep preserved feeling grows stronger now, as if we are moving through a region the upper world has almost never touched. A region not simply hidden by distance, but by temperament, by the very nature of Antarctica's lower waters, a place that conceals through patience, through cold, through the refusal to hurry anything at all ahead. The smooth floor begins to gather into another darker line, not sharp enough to be called a drop, not wide enough yet to be a basin, only the beginning of a decision in the seafloor, a new inward lean, a new soft descent being formed by shadow. Marine snow disappears into it, a pale fragment seen for a breath, then gone. A rooted colony on the stone behind us fades from sight. One more nearly invisible creature rests undisturbed within the sediment, and all around, The black water remains full of hidden life and hidden waiting. We move toward the darkening line slowly, with one more falling veil of marine snow, one more faint bioluminescent breath, one more quiet folding of the channel beneath us, and ahead, Antarctica lowers its hidden world again. One more seam, one more deeper passage, one more layer of sleep below the ice, and once more. The floor begins to lean downward so softly, so patiently, that the new descent feels less like a change in ground and more like a deepening of silence. A darker line gathers through the center of the channel, a seam of shadow, a quiet inward pull beneath Antarctica's buried waters. Stone appears along one side in low, broken rises, while the other side fades into thick, dark sediment. Everything about this lower path feels deliberate, not designed, but remembered, as though the abyss has shaped this seam through countless returns of current, through endless falls of marine snow, through the long, cold discipline of time itself. Marine snow continues to descend above us, scattered, pale, almost impossibly delicate now, each fragment a small white visitor from a world of brightness already lost to memory. Some settle before reaching the seam, softening the last flat stretch of the floor. Others drift over the lowering edge, turning once through the black, then vanishing into the deeper line below. As always, the deep receives everything gently, never with hunger, only with patience, only with the slow certainty that all things eventually settle. Along a rough ledge of stone, a few anchored pale forms remain, sparse enough to seem solitary, yet each one continues, open to the current, open to chance, open to whatever faint nourishment the water might offer. There is no excess here, no abundance of body or motion, only the exact amount of life the abyss can sustain. And in that exactness, something beautiful persists. Farther down the seam, a shape rests close to the floor, its body folded so completely into the sediment that it first appears to be only another part of the descent, only another dark contour. Then one edge softens, changes, a living correction almost too small to see, then stillness again. This is the deep Antarctic way, to reveal only a fraction and to show just enough for wonder, then return everything to shadow. We continue lower, and the water itself seems altered by the seam, not heavier in any violent way, but more inward, more complete in its quiet. As if this narrow descent has gathered centuries of stillness within it. As if every lower layer beneath the ice has asked the same question: how little can life take and still remain? The answers are all around us, in the pale forms clinging to rock, in the hidden bodies resting within sediment, in the faint blue-white pulses that appear and fade in the dark water nearby. One glow blooms below us, small, cold. Then another answers farther down the seam, not enough to reveal shape, only enough to suggest presence, only enough to tell us that the hidden lives of Antarctica continue, even here, even in the lower silence where almost nothing from the bright world reaches. These glimmers feel more private than before, more distant from one another, like separate thoughts held in different rooms of sleep. And perhaps that is fitting, because everything beneath Antarctica seems arranged in quiet rooms, chambers, troughs, channels, seams, one folded into the next, one hidden silence leading softly into another. The slope deepens for a while, then steadies, then lowers again, in a gentler stage. The rhythm is familiar now, a smooth, dark run, a slight shelf, another inward fall. Nothing dramatic, nothing hurried, just the patient architecture of the abyss continuing its work beneath us. Marine snow follows all of it, touching ledge and hollow, settling over stone, settling over hidden bodies, settling over every quiet surface that does not resist being covered. There is mercy in that too. A kind of soft burial without ending, a constant laying down of the world, one more thin layer at a time. Ahead, the seam begins to widen, only slightly at first, as though uncertain whether to remain a passage or become something broader. Stone falls back, sediment spreads. The darkness in front of us gathers into a lower, open shape. Not yet a basin, not fully, but the beginning of one. A softer room forming below the seam. Another pause in the descent. Another hidden floor waiting beyond the narrow line we have followed. We move toward it slowly, past one pale anchored body fixed to rock, past one nearly invisible creature lying in the sediment, past one more bioluminescent whisper that blooms and vanishes without sound, and ahead. The seam gives way to broader dark, one more chamber beginning, one more folded room beneath Antarctica's oldest waters, one more deeper silence waiting to receive us. Below the widening seam, the sea floor opens softly, not into any great plain, not into anything bright or revealing, but into another lower chamber. A dark, resting floor beneath the hidden path we have followed, as if the Antarctic abyss has unfolded one more quiet room and asked the descent to pause inside it. The sediment here lies deep and smooth, a fine black softness spread across the ground like a long, unbroken sleep. Only now and then does stone rise through it, low outcrops, broken ridges, scattered dark forms half covered by the patient fall of marine snow. Nothing disturbs the chamber quickly, nothing interrupts its calm without reason. Everything appears settled into place by long repetition, by currents too gentle to be called restless, by matter falling for ages, by the cold permanence of hidden water. Marine snow continues to descend through the chamber, scattered pale fragments, few, lonely, tender against the black. Some settle at once on the smooth floor, softening what was already soft. Others drift a little farther, turning once, then twice, as if uncertain where to come to rest. Then they too disappear into the sediment, adding one more invisible layer to a world built slowly from the remains of other worlds. Along one low rise of stone, a rooted colony of pale life appears, sparse, almost ghost-like, its translucent bodies open to the passing water with complete stillness, no reaching, no display, only patience, only the quiet continuation of lives that take what comes and ask for nothing more. The lower we go beneath Antarctica, the more life seems shaped by refusal. Refusal of haste, refusal of waste, refusal of any movement not absolutely necessary. Farther out on the chamber floor, a long dim contour lies half within the sediment. At first it seems no different from the many small shadows cast by stone and drift. Then one edge yields, a soft, living adjustment, a motion so slight it feels almost imagined. Then stillness resumes. The creature becomes part of the chamber once more, protected by stillness, protected by darkness. Protected by the abyss's deep preference for concealment, we move through the chamber slowly, and the feeling here is one of preservation more than anything else, not emptiness, not abandonment, but preservation. As if this lower room has remained undisturbed for immense spans of time. As if the upper world has almost no influence here now. Only faint nutrient, only falling particles, only the most delicate traces of motion drifting in from farther above, and yet that is enough. Enough for the rooted forms upon stone, enough for the hidden bodies within the floor, enough for the few drifting lives that still pass through these black waters unseen except for a brief pulse of light. A blue-white glow appears near the chamber's far side, then fades. Another answers lower to the floor, then another, farther off. Small bioluminescent breaths, so faint they seem almost like thoughts crossing the dark. They reveal no full shape, only presence, only a quiet assurance that life continues even in this buried room, opening and closing, drifting and waiting, remaining faithful to the slow laws of the abyss. There is something deeply calm in that life does not disappear when the world grows difficult. It changes, it simplifies, it learns how to belong to conditions most other places could not endure. And here, in the chamber beneath the ice, that lesson feels complete. The floor ahead begins to alter almost without warning. The smooth sediment gathers into faint hollows, then into a shallow depression, then into another. Subtle changes, delicate enough to be missed at first, but together they suggest a new movement of the sea floor. Another folding of the hidden architecture below, as though this chamber too is only temporary, only another resting place before the abyss continues inward once again. Marine snow drifts into the hollows and settles, pale fragments laying themselves down over darkness older than memory. Stone at the chamber's edge fades into black. A rooted colony remains behind us. A half-buried living shape rests undisturbed within the floor, and all around, the water holds its silence without strain. The farther edge of the chamber darkens now, not just because sight cannot reach it, but because the ground itself is lowering there, a soft seam beginning again, a downward line forming from shadow and sediment, one more path opening beneath Antarctica, one more descent waiting beyond the calm of this room. We drift toward it slowly, past one low ridge, past one quiet, sleeping body almost merged with the floor, past one last faint bioluminescent whisper suspended in black water, and ahead, the chamber gives way to another hidden seam. One more inward turning of the abyss, one more patient step into Antarctica's deeper sleep. At the chamber's far edge, the floor begins to lower again, so gently, so quietly, that for a moment it feels like the chamber itself is exhaling, letting its dark softness slip away into another hidden seam, letting the abyss continue its slow inward thought beneath Antarctica. The smooth sediment of the chamber gathers toward the lowering line. Stone appears in broken traces, then disappears beneath fine black drift. The seam is not sharp. It is a persuasion, a quiet leaning of the world into deeper darkness, as if the seafloor has decided once more to fold, to narrow, to continue its buried architecture beneath the frozen continent above. Marine snow still falls, pale and scattered, tiny white remnants of a brightness now impossibly distant. Some settle before reaching the seam, softening the last still places of the chamber floor. Others cross the lowering edge, turning slowly as they descend, then vanishing into the darker run below. Nothing is hurried here, not descent, not burial, not the quiet transfer of one hidden room into another. The deep does not seize, it receives. Along one side of the seam, a low rise of stone holds a few pale anchored forms, translucent, sparse. Their bodies open to the current with the same calm patience as everything else in this world. They do not gather thickly, they do not compete for place. Each one remains where it can, taking from the water only what chance and time deliver, and somehow that seems enough. Enough to persist through cold, through darkness, through all the long, uncounted years beneath Antarctica's sleeping ice. Farther down the lowering seam, a shape rests against the sediment, so faintly outlined, so completely quiet, that it might be mistaken for another fold in the floor. Only a slight living shift along one edge reveals more, a hidden body, a hidden awareness, then stillness again. The creature disappears back into the grammar of the abyss. Stone, sediment, silence, life, all nearly indistinguishable now, all woven into one patient world. We continue lower, and the water around the seam feels altered in a familiar way. Not dangerous, not severe, only more complete, more sheltered from everything unnecessary, as if every deeper layer beneath Antarctica removes one more excess, until almost nothing remains but essentials: cold, darkness, patience, a few pale, rooted lives, a few drifting bodies. A few bioluminescent thoughts blooming softly in the black. One of those blue-white lights appears below us now, brief, small. Then another farther down, not enough to reveal shape, only enough to suggest motion, a body passing. Somewhere beyond sight, a delicate form opening and closing in the hidden water. A quiet answer from life to the immense surrounding dark. These glows feel farther apart than ever, separated by long distances of silence. Like stars in an underwater sky no one was meant to see all at once. And perhaps that is part of Antarctica's deep beauty, that nothing rushes to become known. Everything reveals itself in fragments, a pulse, a contour, a rooted colony on stone, a resting body within sediment, then shadow again, then another sign, then silence. The seam deepens in stages, a smooth downward run, a slight terrace, another softer fall. The rhythm is so gentle now, so practiced, that it almost feels like breathing, as if the abyss itself has its own sleeping pulse. And every chamber, every channel, every seam we pass through is part of that lower breathing of the earth. Marine snow follows us through it all, settling on ledge and hollow, settling on hidden creatures, settling on the floor, as though time itself were falling in small, white pieces. There is something profoundly calming in that endless descent of fragments, not because it ends anywhere, but because it never stops trying to soften the world below. Ahead, the seam begins to widen once more, only slightly at first. The stone falls back, the sediment spreads, the darkness beyond becomes less linear, more open in feeling, as if another chamber may be forming below, or perhaps a wider trough. It is hard to know yet. The Antarctic deep prefers becoming to arrival. It prefers folds to boundaries. It prefers the hush before a room fully reveals itself. We drift toward that broader dark slowly, past one pale colony anchored to rough stone, past one nearly invisible body resting in the sediment, past one final bioluminescent flicker that blooms like a thought and fades before shape can be known. And ahead, the seam gives way to another lower opening. One more hidden room, one more softer reach beneath Antarctica's oldest waters, one more patient layer of sleep waiting below the widening seam. The seafloor opens again, but not fully, not all at once, only with that same careful softening, that same slow release into a broader hidden reach, as if Antarctica's deepest waters are never willing to reveal a room too quickly, as if every chamber must first be dreamed before it can be seen. The floor here is dark with fine sediment, smooth in long stretches, then lightly broken by low outcrops of stone. Nothing rises sharply. Nothing interrupts the calm for long. Every edge has been softened by time, by the endless fall of marine snow, by currents too quiet to be called restless. This is how the deep arranges its world, not through force, but through patience. Marine snow continues to descend above us, thin pale fragments turning through the black. Some settle quickly upon the floor, softening what was already soft. Others drift farther into the chamber-like reach, lingering for a breath, then coming to rest, layer after layer, silence after silence. The world below is being covered again, not hidden from itself, only tucked deeper into stillness. Along one low ridge of stone, a few pale anchored forms remain, sparse, translucent, almost flower-like in their calm opening toward the water. They do not seem lonely here. They seem right, as if this spacing, this quiet distance between lives, is part of the order of things. Nothing crowds the abyss. Nothing insists upon being seen. Everything remains in the measure the deep allows. Farther out, a low body rests upon the sediment, its shape nearly erased by stillness, only a faint line, a faint curve. Then one soft movement along its edge, and life reveals itself for a moment, only for a moment. Then the body disappears again into the floor's dark grammar. This is what Antarctica keeps teaching us. That hidden life does not always rise to meet the eye. Sometimes it survives by becoming almost identical to silence, almost identical to the world that shelters it. The water above this lower reach feels calmer than before, not emptier, never emptier, but more complete in its quiet, as if even the currents have learned restraint here, as if every motion has been reduced to what is needed, nothing more, nothing wasted. A blue-white pulse appears near the far side of the reach, then another a little deeper, then blackness returns. These glimmers remain so brief, so careful, that they feel less like signals and more like the ocean thinking to itself. One hidden creature opening into light, then withdrawing again. One drifting body passing through the water like a thought too gentle to keep. There is comfort in that, a strange, deep comfort, because the abyss is no longer asking to be solved. It is only asking to be entered slowly, to be received in fragments, in contours, in glows, in the long patience of things that refuse to hurry. And as we drift farther through this lower opening, the feeling begins to change again, not dramatically, only inwardly. The floor is no longer simply smooth, it begins to gather itself into subtle hollows, then broader dim depressions, then slight rising lines between them, a hidden pattern, a buried order, as if the chamber is not a final resting place, but another quiet preparation, another folding of the seafloor before the world lowers once more. Marine snow settles into the hollows, pale on black, soft on softer, while the ridges between them keep their dark shape only for a little while, before time begins covering them again. Everything here seems temporary in shape, yet eternal in rhythm. That may be the deepest truth of Antarctica's waters. Not that nothing changes, but that change arrives so gently, so slowly, that it feels almost like sleep. The stone changes, the sediment changes, the hidden lives continue, the darkness remains, and through all of it, the abyss keeps breathing in its own patient way. One more chamber, one more reach, one more fold of silence beneath the frozen world above. Ahead, the far side of the opening begins to darken, not with emptiness, but with direction, a lower gathering of shadow, a hint of another seam forming beneath the sediment, another downward line waiting quietly beyond this softer floor. We move toward it slowly, past one pale rooted form held against stone, past one nearly invisible creature resting within the sediment, past one final bioluminescent whisper fading before its body can be known, and ahead. The lower reach gives way to shadow once more, one more hidden seam, one more inward descent, one more deeper layer of Antarctica's sleeping abyss. Below the softening reach, the dark seam gathers once more, not as a threat, not as a final drop, but as another inward gesture of the abyss, another quiet way the Antarctic deep continues folding into itself. The floor lowers gently, sediment leaning into shadow, stone appearing in dark, broken traces, then fading again beneath the soft black drift. Nothing here feels unfinished. Nothing here feels hurried toward an ending. Even now, so deep beneath the frozen continent, the ocean still moves with patience, still reveals itself in breaths, in pauses, in one more hidden chamber, one more hidden seam, one more silence waiting beneath the last. Marine snow follows us downward, thin white fragments, scattered like the faintest memory of weather. Some drift slowly over the lowering floor, then come to rest. Others vanish into the seam's deeper black before the eye can keep them. And watching them disappear, it becomes impossible not to feel it. That the question we carried from the surface, what lies beneath Antarctica's darkest waters, was never a question leading to one creature, or one object, or one sudden answer. It was leading here, into the long hidden rhythm of the deep, into a world that has survived not by revealing itself, but by remaining folded, protected by cold, protected by darkness, protected by silence, along one low rise of stone. A final sparse colony of pale-rooted life opens into the water, translucent, still, completely faithful to the slow law of this place. Take only what comes, endure what does not, remain where almost nothing can remain. Farther below, a body rests within the sediment, its form nearly gone, its outline held only by the smallest difference in shade. Then a faint movement, so soft it feels like the floor itself is breathing. Then stillness again. This too is part of the answer. Not spectacle, not violence, not some singular hidden terror, but an entire way of life shaped by the deepest quiet. The farther we descend, the clearer it becomes. Antarctica does not keep its secrets the way stories often imagine. It does not bury a monster in the dark. It buries patience there. It buries preserved life. It buries a whole sleeping world, a world of drifting pale bodies, of rooted, translucent forms, of black sediment receiving the endless fall of marine snow, of faint blue-white glimmers answering the abyss for one breath, then fading back into it. One of those glimmers appears now, low in the water, then another farther on. Small bioluminescent whispers suspended in the black. They do not illuminate the truth, they touch it lightly, and perhaps that is enough, because the truth here was never meant to be seen all at once, only felt, only entered slowly, only understood by surrendering the need for a louder answer. The seam continues downward in soft stages, a dark run, a slight terrace, another inward fall, and with every layer, the realization deepens that beneath Antarctica's darkest waters lies not emptiness, but preservation, not ruin, but endurance, not one hidden thing, but countless quiet lives continuing in a world almost untouched by the bright, hurried surface above. This is why the deep feels so calm now, because nothing here is trying to become more than it is. The stone remains stone. The sediment keeps settling. The hidden creatures drift or rest or cling to the dark world that holds them. And the ocean wraps all of it in one more veil of silence, one more gentle protection, one more layer of sleep. Ahead, the seam begins to ease, not into brightness, not into revelation, but into a final, softer dark. A last, quiet opening in the hidden floor beneath us, as if the abyss is preparing not another mystery, but a resting place, a place where the answer can finally settle. We move toward it slowly, past one pale rooted body anchored to stone, past one sleeping shape almost fully merged with sediment, past one final cold blink of living light, and ahead the deep opens like a final breath, one more chamber, one more softer silence, one more place where Antarctica keeps its ancient, hidden heart. And here, at last, the descent begins to rest, not because the abyss has ended, not because every secret has been revealed, but because something inside the silence has become clear. The final chamber opens softly beneath us, a dark and gentle floor, a resting place of black sediment, low stone, faint, hidden contours. Everything here feels settled beyond settling, as if the ocean has been laying this room down for ages, particle by particle, silence by silence, dream by dream. Marine snow still falls, but even that seems softer now, the pale fragments drifting like the last thoughts of the upper world, coming down through the dark, turning once, then resting, joining the countless quiet layers already gathered below. Nothing is rushed, nothing resists. Everything arrives the way sleep arrives, gradually, tenderly, without needing to explain itself. Along one final rise of stone, a few pale rooted bodies remain, still open to the current, still patient, still receiving what little the sea may offer. And farther out, a hidden creature rests within the sediment, its shape almost completely gone into the floor. Only the faintest line remains, a breath of contour, a whisper of life, then stillness again. And somehow, that stillness no longer feels mysterious in the old way. It feels understood, because now we know what lies beneath Antarctica's darkest waters. Not a monster, not a ruin, Not a single buried thing waiting to be found, but a whole sleeping world, a preserved world, a world that learned how to survive by becoming quiet, by becoming careful, by becoming soft enough to live inside darkness without needing to break it. This is the secret of the deep Antarctic Sea, that its hidden heart is not violence, but endurance, not spectacle, but patience, not fear, but protection. The cold protects, the darkness protects, the silence protects, and within that protection life continues, pale, slow, ghost-like, faithful to the abyss that holds it. A blue-white pulse appears once more in the water, then another farther away, then both are gone. Small living breaths in the final dark, not enough to reveal the whole world, only enough to remind us that it goes on, that even now, beyond sight, beyond thought, the hidden lives of Antarctica continue drifting, continue resting, continue opening and closing softly within the endless cold. Perhaps that was always the answer, not something waiting at the bottom, but the descent itself, the endless softening, the endless inward folding, the endless way the Antarctic deep protects every hidden life, with one more silence, one more shadow, one more layer of sleep around us. The chamber remains still, the sediment remains dark and soft, the stone remains where it has remained for ages, and above all of it, the black water rests like a great, unbroken dream. The surface no longer matters here. The ice above no longer feels distant. Everything has become one quiet world, one preserved world, one sleeping world beneath the frozen edge of Earth. And now, we do not need to go deeper, not because there is nothing more below, but because the ocean has already said enough. It has answered in the only way it knows, not with certainty, but with feeling, not with revelation, but with calm, not with a final image, but with a final hush. So let the hidden chambers remain hidden. Let the darker trenches remain dark. Let the pale, drifting lives continue without witness. Let Antarctica keep what it has always kept, its buried silence, its ancient patience, its world beneath the world. And as the last marine snow settles through the water, as the last faint glimmer disappears into black, as the seafloor rests beneath its endless covering of cold and quiet, the deep folds around us one final time, softly, completely, like a dream returning to itself, and perhaps far below the ice, far below memory, far below the bright, restless surface of the world, Antarctica is still sleeping, still protecting its hidden heart with one more silence, one more dream, one more layer of sleep. If you enjoyed this deep sea journey and want more calm ocean documentaries for sleep, subscribe to Unseen Ocean History. You can also leave a comment and tell us which hidden ocean you'd like to explore next. Until then, rest well and drift gently into sleep.